All right, what's going on? Drive time, Tuesday afternoon, about 12 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. Lovely day, beautiful day. We have turned our calendars now to June, and it's starting to feel a lot like summer outside. And as it is, every single day, it's good to have you along for the ride. Spence Checketts behind the mic. Porter Larson producing the program today, Behind the Glass. Good guest list on the program that we'll get to today. A lot of news, a lot of topics we're going to get into today. Stewart Mandel, friend of the program, question mark. It's been a while since we had our guy on, but Stewart Mandel from The Athletic did his updated college football predictions. And the landscape of the Big 12, according to Stewart Mandel, has changed quite a bit with the Brendan Sorsby situation. We'll let you know what he had to say about Utah. We'll let you know what he had to say about BYU. We'll do a little college football on the show today. I teased this yesterday. We'll get into it on the show. We might save the bulk of it for our open segment later on. But it was announced on Friday in a classic Friday news dump right out of the playbook that as a result of the pending deal between the University of Utah and Otro Capital, the University of Utah Athletic Department has begun what's being characterized as unsettling layoff process as part of the private equity deal. So we'll get into it. I didn't have a ton of time to talk about it yesterday, but I wanted to kind of dig into it a little bit more, talk to a few people, which I was able to do. And we'll talk about how this could impact the employees of the athletic department, what it means for the future of Utah athletics, and learn just a little bit more about what the world of private equity means when you decide to make a deal with private equity sharks who are expecting healthy return on their investment. We have more details that we'll get into. The problem is this deal, as I said yesterday, it's not done yet. So we really still need to see exactly what the deal entails. We have more details on the equity split as Utah will maintain about 66% ownership. Otro Capital gets about 33% and some change, which is not nothing, man. That's a big chunk. Of course, Utah was able to formulate this deal in a way where they could express their messaging of maintaining majority shares, which they have, and therefore having control of how this is going to go. That's just not how it works. I mean, yes, 33% is much less than 66%, and we don't know how many seats at this table Otro Capital will have, but meaning Otro Capital, they don't care that Suzanne from the athletic department has 3 kids and a mortgage. That's not how they operate. They'll treat you as a line item if they think you're disposable and you're not part of a solution to make more money, and therefore allowing them to receive the ROI that they expect for their initial investment. But we'll get into this on the show today. The battle for Lord Stanley's Cup begins tonight. Game 1 between Carolina and Vegas will be in tonight. So it's on the ice tonight, and then it's on the hardwood tomorrow as the battle for the Larry O'Brien Trophy will begin. The NBA Finals between the San Antonio Spurs and the New York Knicks that we'll talk about on the show today. Random busy news cycle in pro football. Myles Garrett is a L.A. Ram, and A.J. Brown is a New England Patriot. So we'll get into some NFL storylines on the show as well. Of course, MLS and RSL on a 2-month break for the World Cup, which is right around the corner. And the U.S. men's national team with another friendly coming up against Germany to see kind of where they're at prior to the start of their men's national team World Cup journey. So get a little World Cup in on the program as well. A lot to do on a busy Tuesday show. Happy Tuesday to you. Thanks so much for making us a part of your day today. All right. Our first guest will be Tim McMahon, our buddy Ban McMahon. Talk some NBA Finals, the latest on the Utah Jazz. And we're 3 weeks from today, actually. I just realized that. 3 weeks from today is the NBA draft. And, of course, that is a big, big night for Jazz fans. And the organization will bring you our yearly draft coverage with our guy Gordy Chiesa live in studio. We'll drag Smitty in as well to have some fun on draft night. So stay tuned for that. Tim McMahon will join us first. Sarah Todd. I've talked about Sarah's good reporting concerning the Darren Peterson medical situation. Did a really good job. If you missed that, go to the Deseret News sports section and find the Sarah Todd piece on the curious case of Darren Peterson. And we'll dig into that article with Sarah on the show today. We are releasing tomorrow. Technically, it's episode 9 of my podcast with Sinclair called Reality Check with Spence Checketts. You get a sneak preview of that today. Coming up in the 4 o'clock hour, it's part 2 of my conversation with my dad, with Dave Checketts. And it's applicable because the start of the NBA Finals is this week. And 27 years ago, so many similarities, by the way, that's crazy to think about. Tim Duncan was 22 in 1999. It was his first title, beating the New York Knicks. And by the way, that San Antonio Spurs team beat the Blazers and the Timberwolves in the playoffs. This San Antonio Spurs team with Wembanyama at 22 also beat the Blazers and also beat the Timberwolves. Can Victor Wembanyama at 22 do what Tim Duncan did at 22 to the New York Knicks when San Antonio beat the Knicks in 5 games? My dad was running the Garden in 99, so we do some fun story time and memory time. We'll bring that on this space coming up at 4 o'clock today. And then we take a sharp turn in the wrong direction. Dave Fox will be live in studio. Our guy Dave Fox released a boating video yesterday with an Enya song in the background. So we are going to haze him heavily on the program today. Tim McMahon, Sarah Todd, Dave Checketts, Dave Fox, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners, and that guy who 27 years ago was learning how to not wet the bed, but he is a Knick fan now. Duncan, 22, Wembanyama, 22. It's wild to consider the potential of seeing history repeat itself. History
doesn't always repeat itself, but it often rhymes. I forgot who said that, but it always does seem to.
That was Robin Williams.
Was he the first one to say that?
I don't know. I was watching a Robin Williams documentary last night.
But yeah, man, the parallels are super interesting, and it's one of those things where it just seems almost a little too parallel to be real. But here we are, another great San Antonio draft pick who is looking like the future of the league in some form or fashion, as Tim Duncan was. And his first opportunity to get a championship is up against the New York Knicks. We're 27, 28 years later. So, yeah, man, it's exciting. It's fun. The storylines are plenty. And I think it's going to be a good series. I don't think, although I do believe that our Knicks are underdogs, I don't think they're underdogs to the point where they're going to be trying to avoid a sweep or anything like that. I think we're going to see a competitive, fun series with a good back and forth as far as the chess game goes.
You know, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Do you know who said that?
Michael Scott.
Michael Scott from The Office?
Yeah.
Maybe he did, but I don't know that he was the first. And I don't know. Some dude from history said that. So we should learn who actually said that, or else we're going to be doomed to repeat history. I don't know. Weird sayings to start the show. Look, bottom line, Tim McMahon's going to roll by right off the top. But before Tim joins us on this Tuesday afternoon, courtesy of our friends at IFA Country Stores, it's time now for your opening tip. Now, like any good coach, it's time to update the game plan for a healthy green lawn now that the hot weather is here. It's time for IFA Spring and Summer Lawn Food for healthy turf that stays green all summer long. IFA Spring and Summer Lawn Food, it's the ultimate lawn owner power move at IFA.coop or at a local Utah store today. All right, real quick here. We're going to do a bunch of basketball with Tim and Sarah, and then we'll kind of bounce around in the 4 and the 5 o'clock hour. But Stuart Mandel from The Athletic, who's a friend of the show, ? Stuart used to join us all the time, and it's been a minute since we've had him on. But as a result of the Brendan Sorsby stuff, Stuart Mandel, who I like a lot, I think he's a really smart college football writer, essentially dug into his recalibrated expectations for college football and the Big 12 as a whole. So some interesting stuff here. According to Stuart Mandel, his recalibrated prediction now, he believes that BYU should be not just the favorite, but a pretty healthy favorite to win the Big 12. He has BYU 8th nationally, and now he has BYU number 1 in the Big 12 as a result of what's happened with Brendan Sorsby and Texas Tech. Now, of course, there are plenty of angles to consider here. You know, last year, Texas Tech undressed BYU twice, right? I think the total aggregate final score was 63-14, if memory serves. BYU was the 7th-ranked team in the country when they went to Lubbock. And as we covered that game on the show, we basically said, look, all they have to do to maintain their spot is not go to Lubbock and get embarrassed. And that's exactly what happened. And then Big 12 championship game, obviously the week of that game, we were talking about the potential of the Big 12 hopefully getting 2 teams in. Even if BYU loses, can they get access to a 12-team CFP? And it was kind of the same deal. Like, if they are going to be included in the 12-team field, what they cannot do is go to the Big 12 championship game and get their brakes blown off. And that's what Texas Tech did to them again. So I actually still think there was a compelling case to be made for BYU to get access to the 12-team CFP because, of course, we wanted to see 2 Big 12 teams in the mix. But when you look at it in the rearview mirror now, the way Texas Tech absolutely got stomped by Oregon, the College Football Playoff Committee, and oftentimes, as I've referenced in the past, very early on, sends the message that anyone that's not in the SEC or the Big Ten, you're going to have to win your league. You got to go win the conference in the Big 12. You got to go win the conference in the ACC. We'll leave Notre Dame aside, obviously. And that's not going to be every single year, but it certainly feels like that's been the message over the past few years, that if you are in the Big 12, you have one pathway to sit at our lunch table, and that is you have to win your league. Okay, so I thought it was interesting, though, to see Mandel slide BYU up to 8 in the country, and he slid Texas Tech all the way down to 14. And previous, they had Tech as a top 10 team. And look, the bottom line is the Brendan Sorsby stuff cannot be understated. He was the only 5-star transfer they were able to lock in. According to ESPN's rankings, he was the number 1 transfer in the country. And ultimately, they're not going to be able to have him under center. I do not see a pathway for Brendan Sorsby to play college football. Will Hammond, their plan B, coming back from ultimately a torn ACL. Will he be ready to start the year? But they lost 9 starters. And I'm talking about Jacob Rodriguez. I'm talking about 4 NFL D linemen. I mean, it wasn't just a couple of good players they lost. They lost some of their best players. But again, the number 6 transfer portal class in America, that did include Sorsby. The number 1 transfer portal class in the Big 12, that also included Sorsby. But here's where I thought it got really interesting with Mandel. And look, we just kind of have to call it how it is. Those of us that are around the team, and as I often say, if you really want to know what's going on with your team, just listen to the local people, read the local beat writers, read the Tribune and the D-News, and the people that are actually in that building somewhat consistently. We don't know what it will look like year 1 under Morgan Scalley, right? But those of us that know him and know the team believe that it is his time. Mandel does not have Utah in the top 25. He does have 4 teams in the Big 12. It's BYU at 8, Texas Tech at 14, Houston at 18. Then he has TCU at 25, and then he lists Arizona and Utah as 2 teams that just missed the top 25. So essentially, if you look at his rankings, Utah the 5th or the 6th best team in the conference. That feels a little bit low to me, while also acknowledging all the unknowns of a first-year head coach, of course, losing one of the best offensive line coaches in America and losing the best offensive line in the Big 12, all 5 of them, and potentially one of the top, 2 or 3 units in the entire country. So some updated stuff from a really smart college football writer. BYU favored to win the conference, Texas Tech 2, Houston 3, TCU 4, and then Arizona, Utah 5 and 6. So some interesting stuff there. We'll get back to this college football conversation. I do want to save the conversation about what's happening at the University of Utah with the entanglement of a private equity partner now kind of settling in and the reality of what that's going to look like for some people up there. We'll do that in about an hour from now. But we'll catch our first break, and coming up next, 3 weeks away from the NBA draft, on the eve of the NBA Finals, Tim McMahon will be our first guest. Tuesday show. Good to have you with us on ESPN 700. We are 3 weeks away from the NBA draft. It is the eve of the NBA Finals. So great day to bring on our guy, Tim McMahon. Tim, happy Tuesday, buddy. How are you?
Howdy, partner. I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good. Do we find you in San Antonio today?
Indeed, you do. I am walking through the back hallways of the Frost Bank Center. The Knicks are out there practicing right now. We've wrapped up media, and we've got a recording of the Hoop Collective coming up. We're actually going to be on the court, so that's what we're waiting on right now.
Awesome. Good for you. The Hoop Collective is one of the best NBA podcasts out there for our listeners. It's Brian Windhorst, Tim McMahon, and Timmy Goodtime Bontemps. And I believe it was Bontemps who recently mentioned that his understanding is the Jazz and Walker Kessler are inching closer and closer to a contract agreement. Tim, do you have an update for us Jazz fans out here?
I think that, this is a semantical discussion. I think what Bontemps said was the anticipation is that they're going to reach deals somewhere in that range. I don't think a whole lot has changed since the last time we talked about this, and that is that the Jazz value him somewhere in that range, and that Walker's representation believed that his value is significantly higher. So there are conversations to be had. There are negotiations that need to happen. I think because of some of the situations that happened before the trade deadline, in particular, Washington filling their cap space with Anthony Davis, I think it could be challenging for them to find a place that will, a suitor that is willing and able to pay more. But, again, I would say the most likely scenario is Walker Kessler's back in a Jazz uniform. I don't think it's anything close to a certainty.
So the number that's been thrown around is 30-ish mil, Tim, and that puts him in, Alfred Şengün, Chet Holmgren, Rudy Gobert money level, right? I mean, is that kind of the area that he exists in this league?
I think the Jazz would say, hey, how about 25? I think it is significantly south of Chet Holmgren. Chet got a max extension. I think that Walker and his representation would like to comp him to Rudy Gobert coming off of his rookie deal, points to the extension that he got from the Jazz then, and then use NBA inflation, talk about the percentage of the salary cap, and those numbers would be closer to the $40 million range. And again, I'm just laying out what I'm hearing from both sides, not where I think it should be.
For sure. Last thing on this before we move on, there was at some point some conversations about Walker maybe being a little bit frustrated with the lack of serious approach as it pertains to trying to win. That should change this year. Any insight as to, whether or not Walker wants to be part of this thing long term?
I think there maybe are some things that need to be smoothed over. I do know he's got a ton of respect for Will Hardy. That he does want to be part of the winner. As you pointed out, that part of things, they've at least taken major strides to hopefully position the franchise to be competitive again next year. And I haven't talked to Walker personally about this, particularly recently, so I don't want to really put myself in a position where I'm putting words in the guy's mouth.
Fair enough. One more Jazz thing, because we are 3 weeks away from the NBA draft, and of course it is a potentially seismic decision and maybe a historic night for the Utah Jazz. I know that your attention has been elsewhere because there's other basketball being played, but I think the redeeming thought around here, as far as people that feel like they have a good sense on what they're going to do, is the Jazz kind of have landed on whoever Washington does not take out of Darren Peterson or A.J. DeBonsa, we're just going to take the other guy and ride with them. Your thoughts there?
The one thing that I don't know is whether the Jazz are one of the teams that would value Carlos Boozer above one of those guys. I don't know that. And I think there's a lot of people around the league who are more analytically driven who do think that Carlos Boozer should be a top 2 pick. And they might be outvoted by, in their own organizations, by their own front offices. I would be guessing to tell you, where the Jazz fallen out. What I do know is the Jazz have done their due diligence on Darren Peterson, and they would be completely comfortable with him as part of their franchise. That the concerns about some of the things that happen to keep him off the floor, to have him check out of games at Kansas. There's nothing there that would prevent the Jazz from drafting him.
Since you and I last spoke, I don't know, man. It felt historic. It felt important. It certainly was impressive as Victor Wembanyama, at the age of 22, led his San Antonio Spurs into a really tough place to play and was able to beat the Thunder in their building in a Game 7 of a Western Conference final. Every step in the right direction feels like we are watching the beginning of something very, very special with this young man. I know that's not breaking news to you, but what's the most impressive thing about what San Antonio did in Oklahoma City with that Game 7 win?
I think, honestly, the most impressive thing about that win was Shea played a phenomenal game. Wemby, by his standards, was just okay, pretty good. And this is a Spurs team that it's not just the Victor show. They've got a lot of dudes, and they've got 3 dudes in particular that are going to be part of this thing for a long time to come. I'm talking about Victor Wembanyama, Stephon Castle, and Dylan Harper. And all 3, Wemby's already a superstar, maybe to face the league at 22. Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper are both going to be superstars, and they're both, have done superstars type stuff at times during these playoffs. And man, I certainly, for most of the season, honestly, even going in the last series, I thought the Thunder would repeat as NBA champions. Don't tell the Spurs they're ahead of schedule, because they're like, we didn't get a schedule. But for the Spurs to be here this soon with this much room to continue to grow is a pretty scary thought.
Yeah, I ran into Steve Wojciechowski, Jazz assistant coach, the other day. It was actually Sunday, the day after San Antonio's win. And it was interesting to get his perspective on what the NBA community senses is what's happening. Because, look, Tim, there are so many questions we've been asking over the years, and this kid appears to be the potential answer to many of them. I mean, how will we fix All-Star Weekend? Okay, just let him want to go kill everybody that weekend, which seemed to at least make it more enjoyable and competitive. This modern day of AAU culture and summertime basketball where most of the best players play with and against each other starting at the age of 12 and 13. So, the desire to beat your opponent, does that exist the way that it used to? Well, it exists with him. So it's not just the way he plays, it's the way he approaches this entire process, Yeah,
no, he's going to be great for the league. And look, he's not perfect. Like, guy no-showed on media after Game 5 dud in the Western Conference Finals. If you're going to be the face of the league, it's a full-time job. You don't get to pick and choose when you do it. But just in terms of the combination of talent, drive, competitiveness, we've never seen anything like this, right? We've seen the talent and the competitiveness and the drive, all that combination with Michael Jordan. This guy's all that, and then he's a foot taller. We've never seen a guy this tall who's got this kind of athleticism. We've never seen a guy this tall who's this skilled. We've never seen a guy this tall who's this competitive, and he's all of those things. And, I ran into one of the higher-ups in the Spurs front office after that Game 1. The guy goes for 41 and 24, just a double overtime classic, after sitting there on the bench seething while I watched Shai Gilgeous-Alexander get the MVP trophy. And the first thing the guy says to me is, he's just a baby. He's just a baby. Basically saying, dude, this guy's got so much room to continue to grow and get better and get bigger and get stronger, get savvier, and just all the things. Like, Jalen Brunson said himself tonight or this afternoon. Basically, we're seeing stuff we've never seen before with Victor Wembanyama.
So the Oklahoma City takeaway of this entire thing, because, look, we got to be fair. And with the way Chet kind of wilted away, I think it's safe to say, and maybe easy to say, that Jalen Williams, who has a 40-piece in an NBA Finals game, is our second most important player. And A.J. Mitchell obviously came on at the end of the season, had some really good playoff games as well. They're not going anywhere. I thought Shea's answer after the game about Sam Presti doing his thing was like perfect, spot on. I know, and look, we see this. I don't know why we do this in sporting society, but we just do. Like, people get sick of success and start to hate on greatness. We saw it with the Warriors. Sure. We see it with Oklahoma City, but you'll see
it with Wemby too.
For sure.
That's coming.
For sure. I mean, we experienced it with Mitchell here in the market. Everyone loved him until they didn't. It's just this weird thing that happens. But the future of Oklahoma City now, what does that look like?
Look, I think that Spurs Thunder is going to be one of the great NBA rivalries, one of the all-time great NBA rivalries. Like Celtics Lakers of the 80s, except for they're running to each other in the conference finals instead of the finals. And what I'm telling you is I think they're both going to be multiple championship teams. This idea that, the Thunder were one and done. No, they've got some things to figure out. Anthony Slater and I have a story out about just the decisions they have to make this summer with the salaries, exploding and all those sort of things. But they've got a big three. They've got an MVP face of the franchise who's as like the epitome of what you want as a face of the franchise player. And they got to figure out Jalen Williams' health with the hamstrings. And then, look, Chet's got some soul searching and some work to do. There's no doubt about that. But they're still loaded with picks. They've still got the best general manager in the game. They've still got a ton of pieces. Like, the Thunder are going to be a force to be reckoned with for the foreseeable future. They've just got a roadblock now, right down I-35 in the San Antonio Spurs. And, again, I think that's chapter one of I don't know how many chapters, but 7, 8, 9 times these teams are going to see each other in the playoffs. Chapter one went to the Spurs. I would wager money that the Thunder are going to be the victor in some of those chapters.
Many of the great NBA rivalries, both current and historic, feature a healthy amount of, how shall I say, sports hate. What are the feel? I mean, we saw a little bit of back and forth, not a ton. I just think Wembanyama is so about business. Like, I don't anticipate him being annoyed by Spike Lee running up and down the sideline. But what's the kind of general feel around the league as far as what the Spurs and Thunder, how they feel about each other?
I mean, listen, you see Victor Wembanyama telling his teammates commit hard fouls when he checks out of Game 5 when the game's decided. You see him telling Carter Bryant that he's proud of him for delivering a blindside hit on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander that, somehow wasn't up there to a flagrant foul. But, dude, there ain't nobody friends in that one. Wemby's not trying to be their friends. The Thunder aren't interested in being there. There's respect, but there's not friendship. There's not camaraderie. That rivalry's got big-time feisty potential.
So in 1999, a 22-year-old Tim Duncan won his first championship against the Knicks and then went on to obviously grab a grip of rings. It's interesting to consider the parallels. That Spurs team also beat the Blazers and the Timberwolves, and this Spurs team did the same. So as we lean into the NBA Finals now, what's kind of the general vibe around NBA media as far as whether or not we think we can at least see a competitive long series between these two teams?
Well, the Knicks got here by winning 11 games by the largest point differential in any 11-game stretch in NBA history. Not any playoff stretch, any stretch period. So you can say, the East is the JV conference, et cetera, et cetera. I assure you there have been soft perceptions of schedule than what the Knicks just went through over the course of NBA history. I say all that to say, the Knicks are playing their absolute peak basketball at the perfect time. They obviously come in with a rest advantage. The things they kind of remind me of the 2011 Mavericks, where they don't really feel like a contender until some point during the second round of the playoffs, and when just everything starts clicking. But you got to the Knicks have to be respected as a threat. I think this is going to be a 6 or 7 game series.
So if the Knicks get this done, it's interesting to consider San Antonio has a generationally special player and maybe the best player on the planet now in Victor Wembanyama. The Knicks don't even have what I would perceive to be a top 10 guy in the league. I mean, it depends on how you value Jalen, who's awesome, Jalen Brunson, and maybe Pete Cat. Mm-hmm. If the Knicks are able to win, do we put them alongside the 2004 Detroit Pistons as maybe the only example since 1980 of two teams without one of those dudes to actually get a ring?
Well, I would say without a top 5 guy, I would put Brunson in the top 10 category. You know, Cat's a guy who's been a multi-time All-NBA player. You know, so they've got, you know, 2 All-NBA talents and then, you know, some real significant talent around them. But they're, you know, they're closer to that Pistons team than certainly they are to, you know, the super friend Miami Heat team. That's for sure. And like, nobody considered Brunson a top 10 talent until he got to New York and has done what he's done there. But like, hey, they've won 7 series in his 4 years in New York. There's not a long list of 1A guys who have 7 playoff series in the last 4 years, you know, especially putting up the kind of numbers that Brunson's put up. So he might not fit the profile of that type of dude, but the performance is there.
Where do you see the Knicks, and you referenced the historical net over 11 games and offensively, and look, I was skeptical of the Mike Brown hire, and I'll eat crow because, man, he has done a great job, but do you see any clear advantages for New York in this series? Like, where are they clearly better than San Antonio?
Wings, maybe? You know, if you want to talk about Bridges and Anunoby and just the length and skill athleticism on the wing. But yeah, no, I think if you just go on paper, the Spurs are a more talented team. You know, experience, I guess you could say. It's funny though, because people were talking about experience last year with the Thunder. The Thunder became the second youngest team in NBA history to win a championship. The only team that was young was the '77 Blazers. If the Spurs do it now, they're right in between those. They'd now be the second youngest. And you know, also, like, if experience is going to be a real factor, wouldn't that have showed up in Game 7 against the defending champs on the road? But no, I agree with you. But having said that, again, I think you've got to see what the Knicks have. You know, what have they done to get to this point? They've played like historically dominant basketball. So, you know, on paper, ain't going to win this series.
No, it's not. And I did want to ask you this because, you know, the narrative surrounding what San Antonio has done, and you did a good job of breaking down the fact that Oklahoma City isn't going anywhere. But the narrative, of course, is that the Western Conference might be dominated by these 2 teams maybe for a decade. But with what the Knicks have done, looking around, look, the Celtics still have those 2 guys. The Pistons had a great regular season. We'll see what happens in Cleveland, but I think they proved that they're not close. There's some other, maybe Orlando takes a step up. But as far as the Eastern Conference, is there a chance that New York is going to have something to say about this for a while? Because that's a good roster that's also pretty young.
I think they will definitely be in the mix for a while. I don't think they're going to be as, you know, I think there's a pretty clear top tier in the Western Conference, and it's going to take a lot of work to teams like the Lakers and the Nuggets and the Timberwolves and the Rockets, and, you know, the Jazz hope to get in that mix. I think it's going to take a lot of work to catch up to OKC and San Antonio. But look, the Knicks are here now. We'll see what they're able to do with this. The Pistons have a chance to get significantly better in these years to come. You know, the Celtics and Tatum fully back. I would be surprised if the Knicks are in like the next 4 finals or something like that. I don't think they're that much more clearly dominant than the competition in the East.
Before I set you loose, we've been kind of debating this with a bunch of different guests, and after the Jazz were able to grab a little lottery luck and move up to 2 for the first time in franchise history, move up period for the first time in franchise history, we got a lot of media around here that got pretty loose about what next year is going to look like. Oklahoma City, San Antonio, we'll see what Denver does. You referenced the Lakers, the Rockets, the T-Wolves, the Blazers took a step up. Phoenix was better than we expected. Steve Kerr is coming back, so that means Golden State's going to try to figure something out. Who knows what happens with the Clips, but they were able to grab a top pick in the lottery as well. Dallas will take a step up next year. There are so many teams that are good right now, and so many teams are going to try to do what the Jazz are going to try to do next year, and that is take their step up. I'm thinking 42 to 45 wins would be a massive win in a play-in spot. Before I set you loose, what is a reasonable, realistic expectation for Jazz basketball next year?
I think you are exactly you've got the right line of thinking. This is year 1 of phase 2 for the Jazz. There was the tear down to rebuild. Okay, that's phase 1. Phase 2 is return to competitiveness, and you're doing that still relying on a lot of young guys, who haven't been in these situations before, who are learning and growing on the job. And you're doing it, as you pointed out, in an absolutely loaded Western Conference. So, the anticipation that the Jazz are just going to make some kind of massive jump, like frankly the Spurs did this year, well, they don't have that type of talent for one. This is the Spurs skip steps. They didn't have the experience, but you don't have Victor Wembanyama. That makes a little bit of a difference. But I think the Jazz. I think if you're in that play-in territory, especially now with the way they've changed the lottery, if you're in that play-in territory as an ascending team, that's a good place to be. It's different if you're the Chicago Bulls. It becomes like the East playoffs, kind of like had been the Chicago Invitational before they kind of got off that merry-go-round. But yeah, if they can get into the 40s in the win column, compete for a play-in berth, that is a massive step in the right direction for the Jazz, and I agree would be a successful season.
I see you've tweeted out looking for a gym for a Thursday night run for media. My question is, who guards Tim McMahon? Who's the media member that's as big as you are?
Oh, there's a bunch of them out here. And we'll also get the NBA entertainment group. And, I'm a role player in these pickup runs as we get deeper into the playoffs. No question about it. Plus, I'm 49, dude. I'm just hanging on for dear life.
Recommendation when looking for a gym, find a Mormon church. There's a gym in all of them.
I'm not sure there's too many of those in San Antonio. Maybe a Catholic church.
Well, if you want, Tim, I can send a couple of guys over to your house with a message, if you'd like.
I look forward to that.
Tim, you're the man.
I won't be home.
Okay, buddy. Safe travels. Be good, okay?
I appreciate you.
Tim McMahon covers the NBA for ESPN. There's a term in LDS culture, a dry Mormon, just a Mormon that hasn't been baptized yet. Does Tim kind of fit that category?
No. I've heard him without the AM radio filter. The language might be something we have to work on. I do know his address though, if we want to send some folks over. And there is actually not only a Mormon church in San Antonio. I believe there's a temple.
There are LDS churches everywhere now. And Tim tweets out, can anyone help us get a gym for an NBA media run on Thursday night? All you have to do is find your local LDS church. There's a gym in all of them.
I was going to say, we might be able to help, but he's not accepting. So.
You might be playing on a carpet floor, which is a weird thing.
60 feet long court, too.
Yeah. So, pro tip, anyone looking for a gym for a run, just find your local LDS church. There's one there. You know what? Let's do contact the missionaries with Tim's address. Give them a lead. And just send them over there to see if Tim McMahon gets baptized, we get the credit.
Right. I think so.
And I think half of his tithing. Is that how that works?
No.
Oh.
No.
Okay.
That's called MLM.
Well, we've talked about this. Maybe we found our angle. Maybe we send missionaries to NBA media members' houses with the agreement of if they get baptized, the church gets 5% and we get 5%.
Just spreading the message.
Yeah. Will you contact the LDS leadership over on North Temple or South Temple and see if they're down for that?
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be.
Send some feelers out.
Sure they'll be on board.
All right, Tim stops by today courtesy of IFA Country Stores. The crack of the bat, the pop of the ball. Baseball season is in full bloom. And it's time for your home team to get in the game. Treat your lawn this month with IFA Spring and Summer Lawn Food. It's blended locally and formulated especially for Utah soils. It grows a healthy, lush, and thick, dark green, weed-free lawn. Just another one of our easy steps. Find out more online at ifa.coop or at a local Utah store today. All right, coming up next, we have referenced the good reporting of Sarah Todd from the Deseret News concerning Darren Peterson. There are many people around the landscape of the NBA ecosystem that believe on draft night, Darren Peterson could be the newest member of the Utah Jazz. We'll see what Sarah has to say about that. Coming up at 4 o'clock, you get a sneak peek of episode 9 of my project with Sinclair, my friends over at KUTV, called Reality Check with Spence Checketts. Some fun story time with my dad, episode 2 of that conversation. And then at 4:30, Dave Fox he'll be here. I can't promise anything else. All right, 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. Keep it here, Tuesday afternoon, ESPN 700. Do you know how to clear cache on internet browsers? Do you have any idea how to do that?
Like all your cookies and whatnot?
I don't know. I'm trying to put an order through on my brother's websites, my brother's company's website.
Mm-hmm.
Your boy might have a family discount code. You've benefited from that in the past.
Yes.
It's not working. So he just said, clear the cache on your browser. I have zero clue how to do this.
I might be able to help you.
Okay.
Again, I'm far less technologically advanced than my counterparts my age.
Okay.
But we could probably figure something out.
I bet Sarah knows. Sarah's smart, and she's young. Sarah, how do I clear a cache on an internet browser?
This is so funny.
You know how. I knew you would know how. What do I do here?
I mean, it depends on if you're using a PC or a Mac, but either way, just Google how to clear cache on whatever device you're using, and it'll be very, very easy. It's easy to do. It's usually just in the tools of the browser, but also we say cache, not cache.
Wait, there's an E on the end.
Yeah, I know.
The E is silent?
The E is silent when it's your internet cache. When you have a little bit of cache, like swagger-wise, it's different.
Just take the E off. I mean, that's... Have you seen that stand-up comic on SNL who does the Tucker Carlson bit?
Yes, I have.
He does the whole main, the E is silent, and who silenced it and why. So now I'm going to do that. Okay. All right. I will thank you for the advice on Googling how to do simple things, which I should have thought of. I'll do that during the break. But hello, Sarah. Happy Tuesday. How are you?
Happy Tuesday. I'm great now. That was it completely brought me into the right mindset, the right mood. I'm fully ready now for whatever you're going to ask me.
Well, of course, we're going to ask you about this great reporting that you did that we've been referencing on Darren Peterson. So a lot of people believe 3 weeks away, Sarah, from the NBA draft, a lot of people believe there's a good chance the Jazz walk away from that process with Darren Peterson as the newest member of the Utah Jazz. So walk us through this story that you did and kind of some of the things you learned and whether or not you believe the Jazz have legitimate concern on their hands as a result of some of the information you uncovered.
Yeah, I think there's, a few important pieces that we have to kind of lay as groundwork in this story that we have received either from Darren Peterson himself or like through the ESPN article where he did an exclusive interview with Ramona Shelburne. And so those pieces are that, back in September, there was this really, really big cramping issue. It was a full body cramping issue after training in the gym at Kansas. And he said that, Darren himself said that he was scared for his life because it was full body cramping, arms, legs, torso, everywhere, and that he ended up in an ambulance and going to the hospital where he was given fluids. But at first he was cramped up so tight that it was hard to get an IV in. So just a really traumatic full body cramping event. And then, there were other injuries throughout the season, but there was also some other cramping throughout the season at Kansas. And, according to Darren and everyone else, it was like they didn't know as the season continued the reason for the cramping. Now, an additional piece of this is that Darren had said that, during games where he felt like maybe he was feeling something come on, like he might have been having another cramping episode come on, that he would get scared. And sometimes that would lead to him pulling himself out because he's thinking, number one, not only do I not want to feel that experience again, but number two, I don't want this to happen on TV. I don't want it to happen on the court in front of all the fans and everything. Like, it's scary for many reasons. So then at the end of the season, he said that after a couple of weeks off from training, from playing, from taking any sort of supplements, that they learned that the reason for the cramping was creatine. Now we've all heard this story, right? It was this is what came out of the ESPN interview with Darren, and this happened about I think a week, maybe a week and a half before the NBA Combine in Chicago. So that was the big news. It's like completely, everything is fine. We figured out the problem. It was because of creatine. It was causing the cramping. And in that article, Darren had said that he went through more testing and that they found that his creatine levels were naturally high. His baseline level was high. And so taking creatine was dangerous because it would increase his level. Now, what I found through talking to doctors, a few things. Number one, there's no blood test that measures creatine. So it's important to know that, like, if he's saying, oh, some tests measured creatine, it was high, that doesn't really make sense to any of the physicians that I talk to, because they're like, what is he talking about? There's no blood test for creatine. And so baseline level of what? What does that mean? Your baseline level was high. Well, there's a couple of things that it could have been. It could just be like a game of telephone here, right? From doctor to Darren and Darren to reporters, where he said it could have been creatinine, which is it's a byproduct from that's in your body that sounds a lot like creatine, but it's not creatinine. And then there's something called creatine kinase. Now, both of those two things that I just said are measurable via blood test, but they would indicate something different. If your natural levels of creatinine or if your natural levels of creatine kinase are high, then that would kind of give everyone pause and think, what is there an underlying issue here related to electrolyte production, electrolyte deficiency, renal production, like how your kidneys function? Like, it would indicate that there was an issue that was increasing these levels of creatinine or creatine kinase. So that's the first thing, is what is actually the word that Darren probably meant to use. So that's issue number one. Issue number two is that he said that this wasn't figured out until a couple of weeks after the basketball season ended. Now, that just sends alarm bells ringing for every doctor that heard this story that I talked to, because they're like, if he had a major cramping episode, they would have done blood work at the hospital when he was admitted to the ER. And if a major cramping episode was indicative of increased creatinine or creatine kinase, that would have been very easily identifiable via blood test from the very beginning. So the question is, why are we hearing about a diagnosis in May of 26 when it definitely would have shown up on blood work back in September, October of 2025? And so that's kind of the disconnect. That's the reason that this is so confusing. And there could be just like a very, very simple answer to all this. And probably the most likely answer is the one that feels the simplest, right? Like, it could be that he had some sort of cramping episode. There's a thing called rhabdomyolysis. It's known as rhabdo, kind of generally. The layman term for it is rhabdo. And that can put off increased creatinine or creatine kinase after a blood test. It's a severe cramping episode as a symptom to something else that's going on. It's just super, super rapid breakdown of muscle tissue. And so it can be really dangerous, but if treated, it can be fine. Now, that sort of thing, Darren said, was traumatic. He called it a traumatic experience. He said that he was scared that he was going to die and that he was scared that it was going to happen over and over again. And so everybody that I talked to was like, yeah, this sounds like he had a rhabdo episode and then he was having like PTSD after that. That's what this sounds like. And so that could be a very simple explanation. It can be things that are absolutely treatable. It can be things that he should be able to have no problem having an NBA career with, but we just need to know if that's the case.
So there's creatine and there's creatinine.
And there's creatine kinase.
So just like there's cache and cache, it's not that much different, Sarah.
Yeah. You just have to be careful when you're saying them because they sound really, really similar and they can all be related, but they mean very different things.
Just got 3 texts calling me an idiot, so I shouldn't talk about these things publicly, unfortunately. But let me just bottom line this, Sarah. And obviously, you know, for our listeners, the league has doctors, the Jazz have doctors, and then they get a pretty comprehensive report of everything they need to make the right decision. This is a massive choice. It's a big-time call, and it's a big-time investment for the Utah Jazz. Do you believe there's genuine concern here and maybe a little bit of pause for the Jazz or any other team to take Darren as high as 2?
Yeah, I think what's important to know here is that so after the NBA Combine concludes on like May 17th, something like that, that's the end of like the workout portion, the interview portion of the Combine. And that day in Chicago, the players don't leave. The team executives don't leave. And team doctors ascend en masse to Chicago. And they poke and prod these players for a number of days. And teams are allowed to request any sort of blood testing, imaging, MRIs, anything that they want, they can request for every player. And so then all of those tests are done. They can request medical history. I think that that's really important. And so there's not going to be like a stone that's unturned here. And all of the things that Darren is referencing when he talks about creatine and the questions about whether or not he meant creatinine or creatine kinase, all of those questions can and will be answered. Those reports are not made public, obviously, but the Jazz will be able to have these questions answered. And so could there be a concern? Could there be an underlying condition which could be concerning with Darren? Yes. But the Jazz will absolutely know that. And so if there is any sort of question about whether or not this is going to be an issue moving forward, the Jazz are going to have answers. All of the questions that you and I are raising, all the questions that I raised in that article that you're talking about, trying to get down to the bottom of this, the Jazz probably already have all of those answers. And so there's not going to be a situation where they're picking at number 2 if they pick Darren Peterson, that they're going to make that pick without knowing exactly what happened at Kansas and exactly what's going to happen moving forward.
So when it comes to any intel that you have at this point, and I feel like most every guest we have is in a different place with this. Tim McMahon, it was last week. He kind of reiterated it a little bit this week. His take is the Jazz aren't desperate to get AJ. I think a lot of people believe the Jazz really, really want to leave the process with AJ DiBonsa. And then there are others who believe that the Jazz are just fine taking whoever Washington doesn't out of AJ DiBonsa and Darren Peterson. And then there's a third kind of subsection of people who believe the Jazz really like Cameron Boozer. And all of the nerds love Cameron Boozer. All the analytical guys love Cameron Boozer. But as of today, Sarah, 3 weeks out, tell me what you're hearing.
Yeah, I mean, everything that I'm hearing is that the Jazz are completely comfortable staying at number 2 and taking who Washington doesn't. And the likelihood is that that's either going to be AJ or Darren, depending on if Washington takes AJ or Darren. Like, I don't think that has changed. Yes, Cam Boozer is an analytics darling. He's the stat darling of this draft class. And I think that has to do a lot with his production and his efficiency at the collegiate level. But especially when we're looking at people in that position of that size in the NBA, everybody is bigger and stronger and better in the NBA. And so that's why people, there's the subset of people that see the production, that see the efficiency, and they're in love with it from Cam Boozer. And then there's the other people who think, yeah, but that's not going to be the same in the NBA, or it could be different in the NBA. And maybe the ceiling feels a little bit lower, but he does kind of feel like the safe bet. Everything that I'm hearing is the Jazz aren't looking to play this safe, but they're also not looking to like overthink it or make any crazy decisions or do anything. They're not going to be making moves or dictating how the roster is made up based on proximity to BYU. And so I just expect for them to pick number 2 and best player on the board wins. If
I asked you to give me a lean, let's say Washington goes AJ and there's Darren and Cameron there on the board. Just give me your best guess. What do you think?
I mean, if the medicals come back and I'm not worried, I'm taking Darren Peterson 100 out of 100 times.
I agree with you. How much of that, and this is the old debate that we've had on the show and front offices have all the time, how much of that is Darren being just much better than Cameron as a potential NBA player? How much of that is the Jazz having a pretty stacked front court at this point?
Both. I think just kind of on the surface, it's both. But just underlying, it's just Darren Peterson is so smart and so smooth and has like limitless potential. Like he looks like the kind of player who could turn into Kawhi Leonard / Kevin Durant. Like that's the kind of level of player that he looks like he could turn into. And so you don't pass up on having a player that could be something like we're talking about, two MVP caliber players. And so I just don't think he just looks and plays like someone who has the ability to be a many-time MVP / multi-time All-Star. He has all of the potential in the world. He's so smart, so smooth, so crafty. So everything looks so fluid when he plays. And so, yeah, it's a little bit of both. It's, the front court is packed in Utah, and also Darren seems really, really good compared to a lot of the other players. But just as an added kind of cherry on that, it's not just that he seems good, it's that he seems generational.
Let's say it's Peterson. Let's say 3 weeks from tonight, the newest member of the Utah Jazz is Darren Peterson. I want you to give me the starting five opening night for the Jazz next year.
It's funny. Trying to figure this out is funny because it's like, we know Will Hardy and we know the Jazz, and they like to bring guys along slow and kind of not make anyone think that they don't want anyone to be like too big for their britches. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yep.
And so there's a little piece of me that thinks, maybe they might have Darren start off on the bench as a rookie. Then again, it's just like, he's so good. He's number 2. I mean, they had Ace come along slowly too, and so, and he was number 5. I think that Darren might be in a different ballpark though. And so if I was giving you a starting 5 under the assumption that Walker Kessler is on the roster, I would go Triple J, Walker, Lowry, Ace, Darren. And Keontae would be the 6th man. Now, if you're bringing along Darren a little bit slower, then you can keep Keontae and Ace in there, and then bring Darren in off the bench, and that gives you a chance to decide, who needs more time. Does Keontae's 1 year of really great playing, is that consistent, right? We need everything to be sustained, right? And so is his success sustained? Is Ace Bailey's trajectory that he looked like he was on, is it continuing to go up, or does he need a little bit more time? What does Darren look like in his first few weeks of his rookie season? Is he look, absolutely NBA ready, or is he going to need a little bit more time? And so I think that those are the 3 guys that obviously you play with. But I don't think, listen, is it bad if Ace Bailey or Keontae George end up being the guy that's first off the bench? No, I don't think that's bad at all. I think that says some really, really good things about the depth that you have on your team.
Is there, is there any, talk, rumors, potential of Washington going Darren Peterson 1, therefore the Jazz landing A.J. Debonsa 2?
I mean, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility at all. I mean, everyone's going to get these medicals back, and if he's cleared, I'm of the personal belief that Darren Peterson is the best player in this draft. And so if I was Washington, I would take him number 1. But then again, you kind of have to look at their roster and wonder, what's better for them. Does A.J. Debonsa supplant someone like Alex Sarr? Is Alex Sarr better suited for the bench anyways? Now that they have Anthony Davis, does that make sense for him to be playing with A.J. Debonsa? They also just got Trae Young, so Darren Peterson playing point guard right there doesn't make a ton of sense if you're going to try to invest long-term into Trae Young. And so I think there's a lot of questions there. It could go either way. I do feel like they would probably lean towards AJ because I think that then that does make sense with Trae Young. And so that's a really easy person to slot in. And then you really, really don't have to worry about if Alex Sarr is going to be an actual NBA starter, for the next 5 to 7 years. You can put him on the bench, and that's good young depth for them. But yeah, I mean, I really do think that, barring any red flags that turn up in medical reports, that Darren Peterson is the best player in the draft. And Washington is going to have a lot of people on their staff that think that also.
One more Jazz thing. We'll get a couple of NBA Finals thoughts, and I'll cut you loose. Tim Bontemps alluded to the potential possibility of us hearing some news about Walker soon, and that news would be that Walker Kessler remains with the Utah Jazz. The number that's being thrown out there is about 30 mil-ish, and that puts him in Chet Holmgren, Alfred Şengün, Rudy Gobert territory. So the Jazz do pay him 30 plus. They obviously think he's one of the elite true fives, in pro basketball. Tell me what your understanding is of this situation as of now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, the way that Tim Bontemps said it, I think that it's kind of been run with a little bit strangely, aggregated strangely after that. It's like, yeah, the expectation is that he's going to re-sign with the Jazz. And I think that from the Jazz's perspective, that's true. Like, they're expecting that they will get this resolved and that they'll be able to bring Walker back. There is still going to be like heavy negotiations. This is not like a 100% decided deal. Walker's representation thinks that he's worth more than $30 million, but significantly. And so the negotiations are going to probably start as like, all right, we'll give you 28. And then, Walker's people will say no, and they'll come back and they'll talk, and then it might move up a little bit. But, that seems probably about right. I think that if you look kind of on the lower end of guys, not lower end of money, but, if you were to put all of the guys who are kind of making, 28 to $30 million in that position across the NBA, you'd end up with a list that would also include guys like Jared Allen. You'd also include guys like Isaiah Hartenstein. And so, putting Walker in that list of people, I mean, I would take Walker over Jared Allen. And so I don't have a problem paying him money that puts him at that level. And so I think that, yeah, it seems high right now, but I think, when you look at kind of the Rudy Gobert, the Chet Holmgren extensions, this is on the lower end of the beginning of some of those contracts. And also, as he's under a contract like that, the players that you mentioned, their salaries are going to increase. Meanwhile, so is the cap. And so I think, a 28 to $30 million contract for Walker Kessler, the way that that's going to look on the books in 2028 is going to feel a lot better than I think a lot of people are thinking right now. And so it seems about right to me. And, the Jazz are going to have some leverage in those conversations. Walker has not played in the playoffs. Walker's coming off of an entire year away from the game after, surgery. There is going to be some leverage points there. And I think that's the reason that the Jazz feel like, we're going to be able to get this done without worrying that he goes somewhere else.
On the scale of, this is how I'll characterize it. So, of course, we just saw San Antonio go from like a 22 win team to a 62-win team and playing for the championship, but they have that guy. They've got, they've got that guy. And the Jazz do not have that guy. They've got some good guys. They don't have that guy. So I'll ask you like this. What's the realistic expectation in your mind for the Jazz next year, and what's best case scenario in your mind?
Yeah, I think a realistic expectation is play-in tournament. Like they absolutely should, with the roster that they're going to have, with the guys that they're not going to shut down for ridiculous reasons throughout the season. They should be able to get enough wins to make the play-in tournament. So I think that's a really realistic expectation. You could throw in a little bit of like, maybe they win in the play-in tournament and get a first-round series. I think that would be really, really great. I don't necessarily think that if they missed the playoffs next year, that it would be an absolute failure. I think that if they miss the play-in tournament next year, it would be a failure. And so I think that, that's the realistic expectation. Best case scenario, honestly, they're in the middle of the playoff pack and they don't have to have a first-round series against that guy. I think that's best case scenario.
Speaking of that guy, let's move over now to the NBA Finals. But before we get there, Saturday night felt historic. It felt important. In 1999, a 22-year-old Tim Duncan beat the New York Knicks in the finals to start his incredible run. Victor Wembanyama, at 22, is about to face the Knicks in the NBA Finals. But Saturday night, Game 7, Oklahoma City, San Antonio gets that done. What does that say to you about where he is now? And is that a kind of an announcement to the rest of pro basketball that he's not coming, he's here now?
Yeah, absolutely. When I took over your job for a couple of days, I said on this program that that's what I wanted this year. I'm sick of people saying, "Oh, they're too young. Oh, they have to go through it. You gotta take your lumps in the playoffs before you make it all the way." No, you don't. If you're great, you're great, and it doesn't matter. And the only reason people continue to say that is because it hadn't happened. It hadn't happened in a long time. It hadn't happened before, in this kind of new era of the NBA. Well, now it has. So now that narrative is over. Young guys can be great. Victor Wembanyama is a phenomenal all-time. He could become one of the all-time great players of this sport. It was evident the first time he ever stepped onto a court. And so he is absolutely here. Especially if you are a Western Conference team, you should be doing the same thing that teams were doing when it was clear that Stephen Curry was here. You are now not just building to be a good team, you are building your roster to try and do something to Victor Wembanyama.
You want to do some radio on Friday?
Let's see. Friday. Okay. I might be able to do Friday.
All right. We'll text you offline, Sarah, because we are in need of some help. And if you're available, you would definitely be our first choice. So last thing that'll set you loose. I think the Knicks can get a couple games. The money is going towards New York. I don't know if that's just rich New Yorkers deciding that they want to bet on their team for the first time. I find that a bit surprising. I respect what they've done. Mike Brown clearly has answered a lot of questions. I was skeptical. But what does your gut tell you about the NBA Finals before I set you loose?
I don't know about gut. I just know what I want. And I think, listen, there's some really good stories here, right? Like Jordan Clarkson being in the finals, playing the finals in his hometown of San Antonio. That is very fun. I want good things for Jordan Clarkson. I don't know if I necessarily want good things for the Knicks, though. And so, because there's always so much spotlight on New York. And, there's a saying that people always say is like, oh, the NBA is better when the Knicks are good. And I'm like, I don't care if the Knicks are good. And so I don't really care about New York in the way that probably other people do. And, I want the weird alien who's reading Brandon Sanderson and hanging out with monks in the off season and wearing weird costumes and just leaning into the fact that he's an absolute weirdo. He leans into the fact that he's a villain and he's a heel. He also leans into the fact that, showing your emotions and loving the things that you're passionate about is cool and it's okay and it's good. And I want that team and I want that guy to win.
Love it. Sarah, where can people go find your work, specifically that Darren Peterson piece?
Yeah, find all of that stuff at Deseret.com, and you can follow me at NBA Sarah anywhere.
Real quick, found a way to clear the cache. The cache has been cleared. You didn't tell me now I have to re-sign into all of these websites.
Yeah, make sure that you have your password saved before you clear your cache.
Oh, my gosh. It's going to be so time-consuming. Sarah, thanks for the time. Be good, okay?
No problem. Talk to you soon.
Our friend Sarah Todd dropping NBA draft knowledge and teaching me how to use the internet. First of all, it should be pronounced cache. There's an E at the end of the word.
I get what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
The English language is silly in that way.
Yeah, it's tough.
Have you never heard of cash? Like you store cash, a little hiding of supplies or something somewhere.
When someone says cash, I
Cache
think
County actually comes from that. Meaning.
See, when someone says cash, I think dollar bills. I
Well,
think Benjamin Franklin's, because that's how I roll.
Of course you do.
I think Donald Trump $250 bills. Give me some of those, baby.
Yeah, that's the coastie in you.
I think slush funds when I think cash.
I know you do.
So I cleared them, and now I have to re-sign into everything.
Correct. The cache is all the little things that your browser like saves and keeps, and
That's so annoying. I don't know my passwords for all of these things. Do you save yours?
I have actually, I'm not talking about my passwords.
No. I want you to say say your username and your password for your.
I'm not giving any information on any of those things.
No, for your prediction markets and your bank accounts.
No.
P. Larson Bird Sighting 1. Close?
No comment.
All right. Now I want to guess your password, but I won't. We can leave this stuff off air. Oh, so annoying. Why is technology hard? Well, I got some work to do during the break to relog into everything. But shout out to our good friends at IFA Country Stores. It's time to go to the bullpen and call in the experts at IFA. Their 4+ lawn care program is everything you need to make your yard a hit, which means you better be getting ready to apply IFA Spring and Summer Lawn Food for a healthy turf that stays green all summer. IFA Spring and Summer Lawn Food, it's the ultimate lawn owner home run. Check them out at ifa.coop or at a local Utah store today. I will catch a break. Coming up next, I've been teasing this. Jason Batakiel, Salt Lake Tribune, is the one that wrote the story on the Friday news dump that came from the University of Utah Athletic Department via an email that was leaked and an official statement from the athletic department about some people losing their jobs. They used creative, kind of funky private capital language. They're learning how to speak that language up there. We're going to get into it because I've had a couple of conversations over the past 48 hours that I think are important to at least unpack a little bit on air about at least what is being said about the hope of how this goes down. Don't forget, coming up at 4 o'clock, you'll get a little sneak peek of episode 9 of Reality Check with Spence Checketts, my new project with our friends at Sinclair and KUTV. It's the part 2 of my conversation with my father, Dave Checketts, who was the CEO of Madison Square Garden the last time the New York Knicks were in the finals. We do some local stuff as well. Then Dave Fox, who posted a video of him boating yesterday to an Enya song, real thing, will roll by. And then we'll get to the 5 and say goodnight at 6 right here on ESPN 700. Scary Movie is coming to theaters on June the 5th. And ESPN 700 wants to send you first. Text MOVIE to 33986 for your chance to score 4 tickets to the movie. MOVIE to 33986 for your chance to score 4 tickets to Scary Movie. I thought Scary Movie, wasn't that like the Wayans brothers like years ago?
Yeah, they're doing another one.
Oh, it's a new version.
Update. Yeah.
I feel like they did like 5 or 6 back in the day, didn't they?
I think so.
All right.
I know they did 4 at least. Irreverent, silly comedy, if you will.
Okay. All right. Well said.
I'll probably watch it.
Anyway, text in if you want to go see another Wayans Brothers Scary Movie to 33986 coming up on June the 5th. All right. Okay, let's take some time to get into this today. We didn't really have time to do it yesterday. So, look, this is complex. It is layered. It is nuanced. It deserves a conversation where we can look at this from all angles. The fact of the matter is, with the landscape of college football specifically, but college athletics, period, it is an unsettling time in a lot of different ways. And there have been some reports over the past little bit detailing the financial statements and the P&L statements, profit and loss statements of athletic departments across the landscape of the Big 12. According to what we have available as far as the NCAA financials go, 2 teams in the Big 12 last year essentially, did not lose money is the best way to put that. One is BYU. Now, their financials are not public, but there is a sports business account, Jim Williams is his name, who is estimating BYU made about $10.6 million last year. I don't know how he got that information. He's won a bunch of Emmys. I did a little background on him. He's won 7 Emmys as a TV producer, director, and executive. He has contributed to Forbes, and he's the CEO of a company called Jim Williams Media at JW Media DC, if you'd like to go check it out yourself. He released a bunch of different data points on the Big 12, on the Big 10, on the SEC, and on college sports as a whole. So you can go look at ultimately what he has to say and he has to present as far as data goes. And he's been tweeting quite a bit, and a lot of BYU and Utah fans have been engaging with him. So ultimately, BYU made $10.6 million, according to Jim Williams. And then Kansas State also was able to avoid big-time losses a year ago. Every other team, including Utah and including Texas Tech, reported not just losses, but significant losses. Okay, so that's notable here because the fact of the matter is, unless you have Cody Williams, unless you have Cookie Bro or whoever else is down there at BYU writing checks as far as their rich alumni base goes, you simply have to find a way to infuse your program with cash to offset losses, pay off debt, and then upgrade facilities, pay coaches and players, and play staff and pay staff. So the fact of the matter is, when you look at the scope of the bill that's been brought to the floor to try to pass, which is going to be difficult because nothing passes these days, even though it is a bipartisan bill, there are several steps in place and several votes that have to be passed, and then ultimately it has to be signed into law by Donald Trump if he's available at that point. So the bill is important to bring up because ultimately one of the things that is probably not talked about enough is, I think it's safe to say, if your schools in the Big 12 and the ACC specifically, okay, we're hoping that the media rights for all of college sports would be pooled together and then taken to market. But when you look at the Saving College Sports bill, which again is going to start to work its way through Congress, and then it has to pass both the House and the Senate, and then it will be signed into law by Donald Trump. The SEC and the Big Ten, and I'm sure this was negotiated, and I'm sure it was basically put into place as a mandate from those two conferences specifically, they are not required to sign off on what is being characterized as a critical monetary addendum of the bill which the two super conferences, who can nearly double or more in media rights fees than the rest of the FBS conferences, are not required to pool media rights with the other conferences, meaning they maintain their media rights individually. So if you go to market looking for a new media deal with the Big Ten and the SEC as your partner, you're going to make a grip of money because those two conferences make a lot more than the Big 12 or the ACC. So pooled media rights, which would be going to market as one entity instead of 10 different entities and potentially earning more money collectively, is really the one thing that could save these programs currently trying to find ways to keep up with the Joneses. So all of this is to say, I completely understand why Mark Harlan and Taylor Randall are looking for solutions to keep up with not just the SEC and the Big Ten, but TCU's and BYU. And again, TCU lost money. Texas Tech lost money this year. BYU and K-State are the only programs that, according to Jim, were not in the red. Were actually profitable, okay? So we're looking at this thing through the prism of what does Utah have to do to generate enough revenue to keep up with their counterparts and their peers. Now, the one thing, and this is a bit of a non sequitur, but I will bring this up. A Big Ten invite would solve the problem. And I can tell you, this is not a personal opinion because I think it's going to be tough to get that. I think it would be great if Utah did. But I can tell you that there are people up on the Hill that don't just believe it's a possibility. They're counting on it to happen. When? I don't know. My guess would be it would be when the media rights go back to market. I don't think anything could happen until then. And if that goes down, it could solve the problem. Because, of course, the Big Ten and their media rights much more valuable than the Big 12, and probably at this point more valuable than even the SEC. I mean, they're probably pretty comparable when you look at the scope of it. So that would save the whole thing. Because, again, if the SEC and the Big Ten decide to break away as a collective unit to avoid the next bill trying to prevent further conference expansion and a Big Ten SEC breakaway, which the current bill does stipulate, it's important to keep that in mind. Utah is hoping, and some people up there are counting on being included in that group. And believe me, I certainly hope they are. There's no doubt about that. I hope BYU is too. Because as I continue to say, the Pac-12 still exists. Just doesn't have USC. It just doesn't have Washington. It doesn't have Oregon. It doesn't have UCLA. It doesn't have Utah. Of course, due respect to Utah State and the other great institutions, it's a different deal. And the media rights the Pac-12 is able to get, much, much cheaper than it would be if you had Los Angeles and if you had Seattle and if you had Eugene and Portland and you had Salt Lake City and, the Arizona schools in Colorado, right? Like, the Pac-12 still does exist. And the Big 12 would still exist. But if you're losing potentially your banner institutions, if you are losing Texas Tech, and if you're losing Utah, and if you're losing BYU, and whoever else the Big Ten and the SEC look at and say, you can ride with us, the Big 12 would still be a thing, but it would not be near the thing the Big Ten and the SEC breakaway would present. I mean, it wouldn't even be in the same stratosphere or ecosystem. And the schools that are included in that group are destined to make a ridiculous amount of cash with the media rights deal going to market as one unit. Okay. The problem is you can't count on that. And there are plenty of people that do not believe a Big Ten invite is in the future for Utah or anybody else at this point. Because if you look at it through the prism of being a part of the Big 12, part of the Big Ten and the SEC group, why bring in more mouths to feed when you can have a bigger piece of the pie? You're not pining to grab a school in Salt Lake City. We're still not close to a major media market, bigger than we used to be. But when you talk about the biggest markets TV-wise and number of fans across the landscape of the country, see, BYU has an international fan base, right? So when you wonder how BYU continues to be profitable in this era of college football, it's not just the local MLM bros that, do their thing down in Utah County or Cookie Bro or whoever else. They've got rich boosters and donors throughout the course of not just the country, but the world. That's the LDS footprint. That's what they'll always have at their disposal. And it gives them a massive advantage that they're also financially backed by the LDS Church that has more money than anyone outside of maybe the Catholic Church. And maybe at this point, they've even surpassed them. I haven't seen the up-to-date numbers, but we know that the church is flush with cash. And we know that BYU has a tremendously powerful financial alumni base and footprint across the landscape of the country and the world. And we just have to be honest that Utah doesn't have that. It's not breaking news. Because if Utah had that, there would be no deal with Ocho Capital. If Utah had the Cody Campbell oil money or the Brigham Young fan base willing to write checks, we wouldn't be talking about a private equity deal. We wouldn't be talking about something that's literally unprecedented in college athletics. That's what this is. Now, the Big 12 made their own private equity deal, offering their member institutions credit lines of up to $30 million, and everybody said no. Because everybody knows the deal you sign with private equity, it is wrought with potential pitfalls. It just is. Now, not all private equity is created equal. And whether you know it or not, you exist in an ecosystem right now that has private equity in basically all of it. My guess is your dentist has private equity money. Your doctor backed by private equity money. Something you probably do every day has its tentacles with private equity. It has taken over America's economy. So it was just a matter of time before it took over college sports, because what private equity companies look to do is find a little bit of a distressed asset, offer a cash infusion with not just a promise, but a stone-clad situation where we are getting our money back and we are going to get, 8 to 10% or whatever that number is, hopefully more. We want our initial investment back and we want a return on top of it. And in order to do that, a private equity company will agree to infuse cash into an asset. And then, regardless of the messaging from Utah, regardless of the messaging from the University of Utah, regardless of this split, which has now been reported, Utah will own 66% of Crimson Brand Partners. Ocho Capital will own 33%-ish, right? That equals 99. So you obviously the last 1%. 33% of a company is a big piece of a company. So yes, Utah, as they said when they announced the deal, they are going to maintain majority shares and majority ownership and therefore decision-making process. Ocho Capital will have more than a couple of people involved in every single decision. Believe that, okay? Now, what that includes is a complete review of your financials and then very strong recommendations, if not straight out, you are going to do this messaging of what has to be done to fix a business that isn't making money. And that's what Utah Athletics is right now. We have the financials, okay? This is not a profitable entity as of now. Are there things that could fall into place to make it profitable? Yes. That's why I brought up the Big Ten thing. And it is the hope and expectation of people involved in this thing that eventually is going to be a reality. And it has to be, right? Because otherwise, Ocho Capital would not have looked at this as a potential possibility for them to turn the healthy profit they're trying to turn. Ocho Capital would not have looked at this is actually a piece of good news in this complex little tapestry we're trying to make our way through here. The fact that Ocho Capital did decide that this is a business worth investing in means really smart people that are sharks and want to make a lot of money believe that the future of Utah athletics could be very, very good, very, very profitable. Otherwise, they would not have made this deal. That's actually a piece of good news in all of this. But as we talked about, when this deal was announced, this was going to mean some uncomfortable change because they're going to come in, they're going to look at your business, and they don't care that Bob from marketing has 3 kids and a mortgage. They don't give a rip. If they don't see value with that position, they are going to want to eliminate the position altogether and therefore inching closer and closer to profitability. I also anticipate several changes to your consumer experience, whether you're a basketball fan or a football fan or a baseball fan. We've already seen the baseball stadium, of course, obviously come to fruition. But you're going to see some changes to your consumer experience. My guess is Rice-Eccles Stadium will have some bunker suites added. You're probably going to see some up-to-date, better concessions. You're probably going to see some up-to-date renovations of the stadium itself and maybe some things around it. And guess what you will be asked to do as a result of those improvements? Pay more for your consumer experience. Just the game. And this is where it gets a little dicey here because Utah is going to have to walk this line of, are you going to price out people that have given their resources, energy, blood, sweat, and tears to this football program or the basketball team? Are you going to price them out? You got to be careful here. You're also going to be asked, if you are a corporate sponsor of some sort, for naming rights or in-stadium signage or mentions on a broadcast, you're going to be asked to pay more money for those things. Because, again, they got to find a way to generate revenue. And until that Big Ten invite happens or a new, very lucrative Big 12 media rights deal is agreed upon, these are the things that they're going to look at to try to find ways to cut costs and generate cash. That's the name of the game. So that brings us to what happened on Friday. In a Friday news dump, where Jason Patacchio and the Salt Lake Tribune were able to do some good reporting. It since has been picked up on by the New York Times, The Athletic, ESPN, etc. A lot of social media reaction, a lot of videos going around. So on Friday, the athletic department began the process to lay off select employees as part of its restructuring following the what's being characterized as the soon-to-be finalized deal with Otro Capital on Friday. That's according to a department spokesman who told the Salt Lake Tribune that information Friday afternoon. Here is the quote, in preparation for the growth of Crimson Brand Partners, CBP, formerly Utah Brand Initiatives, an athletic department spokesman said in a statement on Friday evening, the university has begun the process of transitioning select units of some university operations to the new company. The first step of that process requires the discontinuation of the individual positions in those units through a reduction in force to be followed by the CBP's hiring process. Our guys are learning how to speak private equity, man. The meetings were conducted today, the spokesman said, but the official separation date will not be until June 30th. All impacted employees will have an opportunity to interview for a similar position with CBP. And that's where I want to kind of lean into this before we break, okay? The select number of employees expected to be laid off and potentially rehired at Crimson Brand Partners is currently unknown, and the university spokesman would not share a number. This comes from Mark Harlan, email sent to employees Friday that was obtained by the Trib. Mark said, quote, today marked an anticipated but still significant day in the process of transitioning select units of the athletics department to Crimson Brand Partners. As we conducted meetings with multiple staff members in those units, each impacted employee will have the opportunity to interview for a similar position with a new company, but this is understandably an unsettling process to go through for those individuals. These are our teammates and friends, and we want to make you all aware so you can be supportive of them during this transition. So, over the past 48 hours, I've had multiple conversations with people at the University of Utah. And all I can share is this. What I've been told is their sincere desire and sincere hope is that all of these people will be hired back. Does that mean that's going to happen? It absolutely does not. Do I believe that all of them will be hired back? I absolutely do not. But in fairness to this process that's going on right now, and in fairness to our friends at the University of Utah, I do want to share that I've been told their hope and belief is that every single person that has been impacted by this will be rehired at the end of the day when this new company becomes a reality. Now, the main issue is the deal's not done. We still don't know what it's going to look like. And until we actually know what it's going to look like, we really can't make any sort of assertion or guess at all what the final product will be and how these people will be affected. So let me just say this. If you're part of this process, I'm so sorry. Because what happens with this stuff when it comes to private equity partners joining some sort of endeavor, the dudes at the top are never affected. It's always the people down low, the lower levels of employment that are the people that lose the gig. It's very rarely the AD or the president of the company. It's very rarely your C-suite people. It's always the people below. Because until they figure out a way to generate more revenue via a new media rights deal or an invite from the Big Ten, this is going to keep happening. Things like this are going to keep happening. And you will be asked to pay more for consumer experience. And your consumer experience will be different and maybe in some areas improved, but certainly more expensive. All right, we'll catch a break. Coming up next, we'll give you a sneak peek of episode 9 of my new podcast with Sinclair on KUTV called Reality Check with Spence Checketts. It is part 2 of my conversation with my dad, Dave Checketts, who was the CEO of Madison Square Garden the last time the New York Knicks were in the finals. Dave Fox will stop by later on. Then we'll get to the 5 o'clock hour of the program right here on ESPN 700. All righty, welcome back in. This is technically episode 9 of Reality Check with Spence Checketts here on KMYU, KUTV, ESPN 700, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate you making us a part of your day. Another reminder, we record this on Tuesdays, we release it on Wednesdays, and it's televised on Friday nights on KMYU and KJazz TV. So you can start your weekend out with us on Friday night. Episode 9, but part 2 of my sit down with my dad, Dave Checketts, back live in studio without the jacket. You look more comfortable now. You ready to roll?
Yes, I'm ready. Thank
Okay.
you for this. It's fun to catch up with you even this way.
No, absolutely. It's always fun for me to be able to do this with you. And last time we talked about kind of how the state of Utah shaped you, and the state of sport, as we refer to Utah, kind of shaped you as a young person, and of course throughout your career with the Jazz, later bringing RSL here, and currently still involved with several projects in and around the state. But let's move into the next part of your career. After you decided to depart the Jazz as a result of some things that went down with you and Larry Miller, may he rest in peace, a well-documented story. There was a minute where I overheard a conversation that we were going to live in Denver. That was just a hot minute, but we did end up back in New York. So, of course, David Stern, I would assume you would say, is your main mentor.
Right.
And I often say, I don't know what my family's life would have been like if my dad never met David Stern. I mean, who knows how that would have gone down.
Right.
Talk us through end of the Jazz, on to New York, essentially what you were doing there before you landed at the Garden, and kind of how that whole process unfolded.
When I left the Jazz, I had 5 children. We lived on the avenues in Salt Lake City. We had a really good life, but I had no income. And that's the way that it was.
Mm-hmm.
And to say I was unhappy was an understatement, but I found 2 projects quickly. Number one was I started consulting the NBA on NBA International.
What year was this?
This is 1989.
So this is
late 89.
This is pre-92 Dream Team.
Yes.
Which kind of changed everything,
Yes.
but keep going.
Yes. So it was as we were finishing 1989, going into 1990, I started working 2 projects, one with the NBA. The other was with BYU. BYU hired me to visit the best athletic programs in the country and put together what it is they had, what kind of money they spent, where their money came from. This wasn't about paying athletes. This was about how do you have the right stadiums? How do you get the right facilities?
Mm-hmm.
How do you get the right athletes, recruiting? I went to Notre Dame. I went to Penn State. I went to Virginia. I went to UCLA. Where else? I went to 8 schools. I spent 2 or 3 days with all of them. And it was a fascinating project, and it would really help me later on, of course. So, but then David Stern asked me to come to New York and actually take over NBA International, which we did. And that was hard because we uprooted our whole family, tore their lives kind of apart, ended up in a rental house.
Shout out Maples Inn.
To the Maples Inn in New Canaan, Connecticut, while we were looking for a house. That was a really hard time for our family for 2 reasons. Number one, we'd lost the house that we loved and were comfortable in. But secondly, I was all over the world. I was always on the road. I came back for Halloween that year from Japan with a suitcase full of Japanese toys for Halloween.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember.
Of course,
that.
yeah.
But it was, but my family at the same time got closer together because they didn't have all of their extended cousins suddenly. They were left alone. It was hard for you. It was hard for your sister. And the little ones, they were fine. But for you and Katie, that was a hard time for many reasons. Anyway, that only lasted 6 months. I was on the train every day going into New York. When I was in New York, I was reading the papers constantly about what a mess the New York Knicks were. Patrick Ewing having his 6th year there, never having the success that he should have with his skill and talent. And literally, Spencer, I was just feeling more and more drawn, even though I never placed a call to say I'm available.
Yeah.
Dick Evans, who was the president of Madison Square Garden at the time, had already talked to me and said, someday you're going to be running this team. And I just had this feeling that that was going to happen, but it happened sooner than I thought it would. It happened in February of 1991. Dick called and said, we need you now. You got to come. I went to David Stern, and David Stern said, if you leave after I've recruited you back here and you've moved your whole family, if you leave and do that, I will never speak to you again. And I said, stop that. If I do leave, I'll be the governor of the New York Knicks, a team that you have to talk to.
Yeah.
You'll have to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
But it was difficult for us. He did not want me to leave. He thought, I won't use the words that he used to describe the Garden in those days, but it was a place that he looked down on. They couldn't handle their crowds. There were always fights. They were selling too much alcohol. It wasn't a safe place to be. He said, don't go there. Everybody hates each other. But I finally, after one of our arguments, I left, went across the street, sat down in St. Patrick's Cathedral, prayed mightily to know, and I knew I was supposed to go.
Yeah.
And I went back and told him and walked out and left and became the president of the Knicks on March 1st, 1991, and immediately started wooing Pat Riley. I mean, immediately.
Yeah.
I disguised it by saying we had 4 candidates. I told the press who the candidates were. I interviewed those 4 constantly, but I wanted Riles just because he'd won 4 titles and he had kind of a New York arrogance and confidence that I thought would turn our club around, and he did. He came in. We made a couple of trades. I made Ernie Grunfeld the director of player personnel, and we started a decade of excellence that was really fun. Yeah. Even though it wasn't the team that I truly wanted, it was a group of very tough-minded, tough guys. Anthony Mason, Charles Oakley, Patrick himself, John Starks, Derek Harper. Later it was Allen Houston and Charlie Ward and Larry Johnson, who, I'm still friendly with all these guys today. It was a decade of twice getting to the NBA Finals and just falling short.
A little love for Spree, a little love for Latrell, Spreewell, Marcus Camby. The later group became one that I really loved. But I mean, the 90s Knicks, the origin, the first group is the one that I still like. Yeah. Like when I'm watching Knick games and they show LJ and John and Patrick and that whole group, I mean, I love that team. I always will. But I'll ask a little bit of a long-winded question so you can take a little sip of your drink so we get into the second half of this thing. Because I have to wonder, and you've often told the story of Mom, shout out Mom, the battery of the Checketts family, as I always say, wondering if you had this in you, this boy from Bountiful, Utah, who had not been to a ton of places. I mean, you had served a mission in California and worked in Boston, but really Mom was a Utahn, you were a Utahn, and then in the blink, we were all Utahns, and then in the blink of an eye, we're Northeasters. We live in Connecticut, and you're working in New York. Was there ever a moment you looked around and it's like, do I have this in me from Bountiful, Utah to Midtown Manhattan, running Madison Square Garden of the New York Knicks, trying to hire Pat Riley as my coach?
Of course. In fact, Jerry Colangelo, the owner of the Phoenix Suns, came to New York for one of our first games, and he and I were standing just outside the tunnel watching our 2 teams warm up. And he turned to me. I'll never forget this. He said, if anyone had told me that a kid from Salt Lake City, Utah, would become the president of the New York Knicks in New York, I would say never. Yeah. It would not work. Yeah. And I said, why do you say that, Jerry? And he said, this job is so tough. You have no idea about what's about to happen to you. Mm-hmm. And Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner of the Chicago Bulls, in that first year, I joined in March, we finished in 8th place and played the Bulls in the first round. Yep. And in game 1, we lost by 41 points, which was a playoff record. Yep. And Jerry Reinsdorf told me at the end of that game, he said, now, I just want to say something to you, Dave. New York City is not Salt Lake City. And I said, is that right?
Thank you, Jerry. Yeah,
really?
yeah.
Thank you so much. But I have to say, looking back, I remember the moment when I finally did get Riley to come. And at the same moment, I was fighting a fight to keep Ewing in New York because he thought he had an out, which we did not believe he had. And in order to enforce that, I had to make some calls to people, other owners in the NBA that were interfering and tampering, and threaten them with, everything that we could throw at them. I talked to the owner of the Golden State Warriors on a Sunday afternoon, not typically a time when I can talk tough, but I just said, I just want you to know, if you follow through on what you're trying to do, which is steal Ewing and interfere in the contract, we have 17 lawyers. I will never let you forget it. I will pursue you to the ends of the earth. Language that I don't normally say.
Yeah.
And over time, Spencer, I don't mind telling you, I didn't really like actually the person I had to become.
Sure. Yeah.
Because people really did want to take advantage and really wanted to hurt and undermine all the time.
Yeah.
So I was actually relieved to leave finally in 2001 after a decade, because I just put a picture frame around it. I was really proud of our accomplishments with the Knicks and the Rangers and launching the Liberty and buying Radio City. It was a really special time for our family. You grew up in that era. And even though you had your hat on backwards, I
could call back to episode 1 if you missed it.
You for the most part,
loved it.
Really got to enjoy it.
Yeah, it was my indoctrination into pro basketball too. Yes. And being able to watch those teams, be around them, and learn kind of what it's like to build a champion. Never quite got over the top because 94, Olajuwon was just next level. Mike had retired and he was playing baseball. Then 99, Ewing's hurt, and that unbelievable run of the finals. But San Antonio with Duncan and Robinson and Camby did what he could, but without Patrick, we weren't going to beat them at all.
Yeah, there was no way.
What were your interactions like with Michael Jordan? I remember, wasn't there a meeting where the stoppage was being threatened because the CBA was, you guys were, I think the players were holding out?
It was 99.
Right? Okay.
Actually, we had locked the players out.
You had locked the players out.
Had locked the players out. David Stern had said, if we don't make a deal by the end of the calendar year, the season will be canceled for the first time in NBA history. Don't do that to us. If you do that to us, you'll never get the deal that is on the table now.
Yeah.
The next time we come back, it'll be worse. So that was some kind of threat. And I don't know if you remember this, but I was asked by the New York Times if we as an ownership group had learned anything from the baseball lockout in 94.
Yep.
And I said, absolutely, we did learn something. And they said, what is it? And I said, they didn't keep them out long enough.
That's right. Yep.
And that set off a whole bunch of things nationwide because it was such a hawkish thing to say. But I'd kind of had it with the players. We had put on the table everything we could, and we were getting nowhere. And the lawyers representing them were so distasteful and really so hard to deal with. So look, it was bad, but we had one final meeting to try to break that. We didn't know how many players would come, but it was held in a large conference room on the 50th floor of the General Motors meeting on Fifth Avenue, right across from Central Park. And there were 7 owners. That was the negotiating committee and David Stern. And when we walked into the room, there were 2 microphones on each side of this enormous conference table. Enormous. It felt like a football field. It was so long. And then we sat down, and all of a sudden players started coming in. And nobody sat by the 2 mics on the other side. They were empty, but players just started coming in. And more and more and more players, 100 players, 200 players. We still were wondering, I knew Ewing would be at one mic because he was the president of the Players Association. But we wondered if they would bring their lawyer to sit at the other mic. I sat at one mic and David Stern sat at the other mic because I was going to present our final offer. So I sit down at the mics. Now through the players kind of open up. I remember David Robinson standing in the back, Tim Duncan. I mean, everybody was there. All the major players were there. And the players kind of open up, and in walks Ewing and Jordan. Jordan hadn't attended any meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So Ewing sits down on one of the mics and Jordan sits at one of the mics. And all he does is he starts staring across the table at me. It's 1999.
Mm-hmm.
He's staring, and he leans forward and says into the mics while staring at me, "Still trying to beat the Bulls."
It's a low blow.
Oh, it was, I was speechless.
Yeah.
I wanted to say something,
Yeah.
but the tension was already so high. And it was just his way of saying, you have no chance.
Yeah, that's kind of the ultimate, as they say, just point to the scoreboard. If the other team is yapping in your head, just point to the scoreboard. He ripped rings off of so many people's fingers, yours included.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, whether it's Frank or Jerry or John or Carl or, well, not Pat, because he had plenty of rings and he went and got more. Jeff Van Gundy, Patrick Ewing. If you could put an NBA championship ring on one person's finger that you worked with, who would that be and why?
I don't think I can choose one.
Yeah.
But those three guys would be the obvious choices.
Which ones?
Carl, John, and Patrick Ewing.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the hardest decision throughout your tenure at the Garden? The one decision situation you found yourself in, I'll never forget the Ernie Grunfeld, Jeff Van Gundy thing, where you were kind of forced to choose, and we were like family friends with the Grunfelds. And
it was hard.
What was the hardest moment you found yourself in as CEO of the Garden in that decade?
I really think it was coming to the conclusion of Patrick's career, because Patrick suddenly really wanted to move. He knew we were not going to give him an extension, but we had paid him boatloads of money, better than any player in the league by far. But he really wanted to go to Seattle, and Seattle had tampered with him. So they had let him know they wanted him, and he wanted to go. And we just couldn't get the right mix of players. But my loyalty to him, and people didn't understand this, he had stayed and he had given us every ounce of effort and energy and work that he could. And we came close. But the second time he was injured, I don't think we would have beaten San Antonio, even if he did play.
No, probably
they
not.
were so good. And Tim Duncan was like a force of nature. He was the best player in the series by far.
And Robinson was still playing well for them.
Robinson played well as well. So if Patrick had played, it would have been closer. It would have been 7 games. I'm not sure we would have won. But I trying to move him, and what it created for the Knicks was a regret. It was hard.
Yeah, I remember that. And it wasn't a great deal in retrospect because Glenn Rice had a bad back. And so and Patrick, I don't even like looking at pictures of Patrick in a Seattle Sonics uniform. It's like, or Orlando Magic, like, who's that guy? They say heroes die uncomfortable deaths. It's a Dave Chappelle line, right? And, there was this great article on Steve Kerr up on ESPN.com. Wright Thompson wrote it. And when Wright decides to cook, he might be in a category of his own as far as sports writers, about how hard it is for coaches and players to finally walk away.
Yeah.
Was it hard for you when you kind of had your first fall that wasn't an NBA fall? I mean, you were busy, you went on and did other things, but when you kind of left the NBA ecosystem, was that a hard choice for you? Yes,
I missed it. I missed the competition. I missed the scheming about who's next and what we do now. And I missed winning and I missed losing. I mean,
competing.
You get addicted to a score, and this from being at home. Like, it was a good night if we won.
Yep.
But I hope I didn't make it too bad when we lost. It was those were hard moments, but frankly, we won over 50 games every year, so I don't have a lot of regrets. I know we did our best.
Did you ever? Because back to the whole kind of bountiful Utah boy running Madison Square Garden, a very unforeseen path for most. And the LDS Church certainly is in a different place in 2026 than it was in 1988. Did you ever run into any, because I can even remember as a kid having people be very confused about what Mormons were or what the LDS culture was. And I can remember walking into the lunchroom one day in school, and it was Peter Vesey, and I think the New York Post that had written the headline, Mormon Tabernacle Liar.
Yes.
It's like, what a cheap shot, you know? And I talk about this on the show. Do you ever remember running into kind of, I'll just say, religious bigotry as a result of your faith back east?
Yeah, definitely. But not as bad as I expected. Peter Vesey, everything was in play. Yeah, everything was
still
in
is
play.
the worst.
And
you can print that.
Yeah, it was like, yeah. So, and I didn't really deal with that much of it. I think it was more amazement that I was in the position I was in based on my religious beliefs. I mean, obviously, you know, the kind of acts that come to the garden and some of the things, the rock bands, the rap artists, other things that came into the garden. It wasn't like I enforced my morality or my beliefs. I allowed the garden to be the heart of New York, and some people wanted to see those kind of acts. And so I did restrict the sale of alcohol only because I believed that we were putting people in cars having been overserved way too much. And I thought that was a liability for the garden. So in the Ranger games, we stopped selling alcohol after the second period. So, but other than that, I just think my religious beliefs, which started here and have lasted my whole life, served much more as a standard bearer for how I did business.
Yeah.
And, you know, the one thing about that headline was that's the only time in the history, in my history, where I got accused of lying. And the charge was true because I did lie, trying to protect Jeff Van Gundy and our team in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, no, I'll never forget that.
I wish I could have taken that back. I apologized at the time and admitted it and admitted why I did it. But as you recall, I had interviewed Phil Jackson during the series at our home. He came to our home for 4 hours.
Yeah.
And I was interviewing him to take Ernie's place, not to take Jeff's place.
Yeah. No, I think you stood up and owned it. And I think that's a great example for people because we live in this societal culture now where everybody lies and then denies and then ignores until the news culture is, until the news cycle has moved on. I mean, that's how our country is being run. That's how people operate their PR. Just lie, propaganda, and then wait till people forget and move on. So I think you actually set a really, really good example with the way you handled that. All right, our last minute here. Before I set you loose, what are you most proud of?
Are you talking about career-wise?
Yeah. What are you most proud of? You know, you've accomplished this over the course of basically a 50-year career, thereabouts.
Yes, it's hard to say. I mean, if you ask me what I'm most proud of, I'm most proud of our family.
Sure.
That they endured everything they did, including you, because it put you in an uncomfortable position. You were a really good basketball player in high school, but everyone expected more of you than they really had a right to do, just because of what I was a part of. I think I'm most proud of the fact that the franchises that I got involved with, all of them are thriving and doing well, and a credit to their community and to the league.
Well, it's been an unbelievable ride, and I still feel like you have a good chunk of your career and life ahead of you. So I'm excited to see what you do next. Thank you for your time.
Great to be with you, son, and great to see this setup.
Yeah, it's
good
fun
for you.
It's fun.
Yeah.
All right, we'll catch a quick break. Coming up next, we're going to wrap up episode 9, technically part 2 of my conversation with Dave Checketts, my father. We'll tell you what's coming up next. KMYU, KJazz TV, and streaming live on ESPN 700. You know, Porter, I'm picturing myself on a boat on a lake, enjoying the start of summer with Enya in the background. It just gives me lake vibes.
A really nice, probably like 2025, 2026 model.
Oh, yeah, indeed. That's an expensive boat. Let's be very, very clear. Our next guest live in studio posted his first boating video of the summer with a nice Enya track underneath it. Hello, David.
The drone video. Actually, the video itself is from last year. It was to announce that summer is here.
Okay.
But that's neither here nor there. And the name of that song you just played, by the way, is called Caribbean Blue.
Yes, it is.
Which fits perfectly with boating.
Yeah. It's just not necessarily the brand you've cultivated doesn't necessarily have Enya vibes.
You know what? I have a series of mixes on my cell phone, as you know.
Yes, I do.
Probably several dozen, and they're all titled. And I have this kind of a new age mix, and it's loaded with Enya.
Okay.
I probably have a dozen songs that I routinely mix through there. Of course, Sail Away is like the most common one, but Lothlorien, there's many others. Storms in Africa, fantastic song.
Okay.
So
when you invite me to go boating with you this summer, I can expect to have Enya as part of the soundtrack.
We don't play Enya on we kick it up when the kids are surfing.
Do we really?
Yeah, they're blasting it.
Do you let them pick the songs?
Yeah. Well, here's how it works. We all get on the boat, and I start my music. And then a couple of minutes into boating, my daughters or some of the grandkids will say, all right, someone else take over the music.
So we do spread the wealth out a little bit.
They get fed up with it.
So the boat video posted on social was announcing the start of summer.
Yeah, it was. In fact, if you looked on social media, it said welcome June, and it was June 1st.
Okay.
So that's what that was about.
Okay.
Now, I actually did go boating yesterday, and I'm going to build out a video for it.
Okay, I can't wait for that.
Tonight.
Yeah, look forward to that.
And it was the first trip with the twins.
Oh, they're old enough to be on the boat now.
They're a little over a year old. They just sit there, but they loved it.
You know, randomly, my first memory of life is boating with my grandpa.
Really?
With Lowell? Yeah, with Lowell.
Oh, how cool.
We got rid of the boat later on, but yeah, we used to do the Pine View thing quite a bit. Yeah, Lowell loved it.
Did he ski? Or,
they
didn't have surf boats then.
He would drive mainly, and my mom still to this. Well, she just had her knee replaced. Shout out Deb. Excellent water skier, and we were raised water skiing in Candlewood Lake in northern Connecticut. Wow. So lovely.
That is so cool, and I'm sure Lowell had a very nice boat for whatever era that was.
Yeah, I don't remember much as far as the type of boat, but I mean Pine View's great.
Yeah,
good spot. Is that where you go?
We go, quite a bit. I mean, we went to. You saw the post where the storm threw us off the lake.
Yes,
that was our first trip last week. That was Deer Creek.
Yeah,
you have to be careful down there. The wind kicks up a lot.
Yeah,
I just think Pine View is beautiful. I really like it.
So taking a lot of time off these days, huh, pal?
I'm just trying to fit in everything.
Good to be Dave Fox.
Because when early August hits, as you know, it is full speed ahead for 4 months. There are no days off.
Yes,
I mean none.
Yes, indeed.
So it's crazy.
Indeed.
So you got to build up to it.
Yeah. It is the time of year where a lot of people in this industry decide to take some time off. I'll be taking a little time this weekend. Get a head up to Portland. And
I don't know about that. Did you let Adam know?
No, I let Adam know, but I don't need to let anyone else know when I decide to take time off, Dave. I can tell you that much right now. In fact, you know what?
For you.
Now I'm just going to take Thursday off randomly. So good luck. Good luck.
You're not doing that.
Yeah, good luck, pal. If you want to go there, that's the day where, of course, we do Talkin' Real, and Brian Dunseth is part of Turner's coverage, so he's gone for a couple months.
Oh my word!
So we're going to bring in a couple of replacements. We'll get it done.
I'm excited with what you're going to do with that.
As you've reminded me, it's our most sponsored show, so we do have to do it every week.
It is definitely one of them. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
I wonder why that is.
Got to take care of the clients, man.
Yeah.
That's what
you
it's
guys
all
do
about.
a really good job of that. I still remember if you look at the very first show you did, and then last week's show. It's like night and day.
Dude, I'm telling you.
It's like deer in the headlights day one.
No, I thought I was going to pass out. The first episode we did, it was the first time I'd ever used an IFB. And I got Kyle barking in my ear. And then Dunny is, you can hear Dunny in your ear and your brain. Then you watch him talk to you. It's weird, dude. It's a really weird thing. By about episode 4 or 5, I started to feel comfortable, and now it's fun. Now I have zero anxiety driving in now.
But it gives you a little bit more respect for what we do, right? Because everyone always says, "Oh, what you do is so easy. Anyone can do that."
Well, it's more about it being different than I expected.
Yeah.
So like the job of a TV host and the job of a radio host are two absolutely different deals.
Totally different.
Yeah.
For one thing, you have a clock, but it's much more liberal when you're spacing it over 4 hours versus 22 minutes.
Well, what's become, in my opinion, necessary to continue to exist in the space is being very mindful of people that are listening to this digitally.
Yeah.
And so what I tried to do when Kayvon approached me about this 4-hour afternoon solo deal, I'm like, hey, just so you know, this is going to be a very podcasty show. Okay, so like if I have a good interview, I'm going 25, 28 minutes. I don't care. Because in my mindset, sure there are people that still turn on 700 AM or 92.1 FM and listen to us as they're driving around town. But I'm always mindful of the person that can't listen live. If he's working or doing something else, then gets home and decides to walk the dog and says, oh, Spence interviewed Dave today. I'm going to go listen to that for the next 15, 20 minutes or whatever. Because you want time spent listening in real time, certainly, but if you are not meeting people where they are, namely with their cell phone, via your podcast page or the ability to stream, then you're fracturing way too much of your audience these days because young people do not get in the car and go to 700 AM. They probably don't even know it's a thing.
Well, and you do a really good job of putting snippets, and in some cases the entire segment, on social media, like Sunday nights with Adam and Spence. I watched one a couple weeks ago, and it almost was like you guys reversed roles for a minute. Sometimes this happens with Adam. And you ended up, or he started telling you some stories, and you ended up asking him some questions. I started laughing.
Which one was this? I don't
probably
remember.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It was pretty fun. You adapted well.
What I've noticed about Adam is he likes to let you know that he was there.
Yeah. He's big into that.
He wants you to know.
Somehow that evolved into you asking him questions.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a fun little like chit chat back and forth. Yeah. So with the TV industry, because this is your 74th year doing it.
Yes, thank you.
How has that changed? Is it kind of the same deal? Like you really have to be mindful of your digital audience now?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Everything we do goes to the web somewhere. It's a must. And, our reporter, Jenna Fink, is terrific.
Yeah, Jenna's good.
And same with Kayla. They just, but they're brought up on this. Mm-hmm. So, for the older generation, we're kind of learning it, but we still you and I are going to do 5 questions with Spence tonight. It's actually 6, by the way. And we'll turn that entire thing and it'll be posted. And when I say web, not just KUTV.com, you've got to post, clips on, and we will on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, Twitter. But it's the direction things are going.
Yeah,
absolutely. The only thing that I'll tell you this much, one thing that is still really big on TV is live sports.
Sure. And that will, by the way, that will never change.
I don't think it ever will.
No,
for one thing, you ever tried to watch a hockey game on your phone?
Uh-huh.
It's tough enough to watch it on TV, let alone a phone. But that's still really big, and I don't think that's changing.
No, live media rights, live television rights are the lifeblood of sports right now.
Absolutely. Because
they're so valuable. They just continue to get more valuable because you don't want to not be seeing the thing live. And sometimes, with the job, you got to watch so many games that I do like to utilize DVR. But when I do watch a game and I'm like an hour and a half behind, if I don't forget to turn notifications off, I'm getting ESPN alerts, athletic alerts. I'm getting texts from friends like, did you see that? So you want to be part of the experience live because that's how most of the ecosystem is consuming it. And when you bring into play what's now an undeniable part of this ecosystem, and that is gambling.
Oh, yeah.
People are watching live to see if they hit their prop bet or the over-under or the team they pick to win or whatever. And in a way, it will benefit leagues because that makes their media rights more valuable. I think it's a super slippery slope societally because we are giving young men, certainly the Brendan Sorsby thing is an example of, at the time, a 19-year-old kid that suddenly had a bunch of money in his pocket. And, oh, by the way, on my cell phone, I can download a sportsbook app. And, oh, by the way, I can bet on sports now because I have money in my pocket without really thinking through, obviously, what the consequences could be because now the poor kid's not going to play college football ever again.
Yeah, and that's a sad story, but this goes beyond even betting sports. For us, high school football, we televise close to 30 games a year, and even that's very important. People are still watching that. We see the numbers on television. We have great streaming numbers too, but they still want to, sit at home, put it on the big screen. And, like my grandson, for some reason, is a big Knicks fan. I don't know what it is.
Wait, what's his name?
Madden.
What up, Madden? Yeah. My guy, Madden.
Big Knicks fan.
My guy, Madden. What's up, dude?
In fact, I took him to the Knicks game Well, and his cousin, my other daughter's grandson, Beckham, is also a little bit of a Knicks fan, not to the degree Madden is.
You have two grandkids named Madden and Beckham?
Yeah.
Sports family, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a well, let's see, I guess they are now. There's a crew.
Okay.
But I don't know if there's a crew that's a sports.
Well, there's literally a sport called crew. So there's
there
that.
You go.
But shout out to Madden and Beckham, my guys, my Knick fan. What's up, dudes?
But he still comes over to our house. He won't be there tomorrow because he's in a high school 7-on-7 tournament in Logan. But he comes over and watches all the Knicks games at our house. He'll go downstairs and watch it on the big screen, and still that's where he wants to see it. Even kids, that's where they want to see it on the big screen, you know, in living color. Yeah,
you're texting with your friends. Yeah. Like this Knicks run has been a lot of fun, not just because I'm a fan, but because I've reconnected with like 7 high school buddies.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah, they're like, dude, we haven't watched the NBA in years, but the Knicks are back in the finals, so everyone's really, really juiced about it.
Have you seen the prices, by the way? Because Madden and his dad, my son-in-law Casey, were thinking, let's just go to a game.
Yeah.
Until he started shopping ticket prices.
I would imagine.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm currently in the process of analyzing whether or not I can take my son to a World Cup game. And these ticket prices, I mean, even I have like relationships of people that can actually help me out a little bit, but
no,
the FIFA ticketing ecosystem, they're not giving anybody deals. I think if you're a player or a coach that played in a World Cup, you have the ability to buy straight from FIFA, but it's still market value. They're not comping anything. I mean, people are going to make a grip of money in this World Cup cycle.
You know what? You could go down tomorrow night. There's a friendly at BYU. Two foreign countries.
I think I'm good. Remember. 2 foreign countries. Good knowledge, Dave.
I just know there's a friendly.
2 foreign countries playing soccer down in Provo.
Well, do you know who it is?
No, I didn't even know that was happening.
Yeah, it is tomorrow night. Well, see, at least I knew it was happening. Porter, who's playing tomorrow night? It's a little World Cup tune-up. Okay, that's 3. We're over 3.
I'm not driving.
It's a friendly tomorrow night.
Are they good teams?
Well, they're in the World Cup because it's friendly leading up to it.
They're 2 World Cup teams.
Yeah.
Porter's going to look it up right now, I can tell.
Or you look that up because Jenna's going down to cover it.
This is tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night at BYU.
It's tomorrow Wednesday? Oh, no.
Tomorrow's Wednesday.
Game 1 of the finals, dude. I'm not going. I'm watching that
And it's
game.
at 7 o'clock, by the way. So that's, you're right. That's right. This finals are at 6:30 or whatever.
Let me remind you that I don't go south of 33rd South. Okay? Everything south of 33rd is the same thing to me.
No, I know you don't.
Olympus Cove is Springville. Mill Creek is Spanish Fork. Like everything. I don't go south of 33rd. And I rarely go north unless I'm playing golf or going to see family.
Well, nothing wrong with north. Your grandfather lived in Bountiful, in a beautiful home right up above Bountiful High School.
I still have some family up north. So if I'm going up north, I'm playing Davis Park, I'm playing Bountiful Ridge, or I'm going to see my cousins or aunts and uncles.
Yeah. Yeah. I respect that. But I'm just trying to solve your World Cup dilemma. Because I'm betting you could get tickets to that friendly for next to nothing.
I think I'm good. Because if I'm going to pay real money for a World Cup game, it'll be a U.S. men's national team game.
Korea and El Salvador.
There you are, Korea and El Salvador. I knew that.
Name one player on either team. Don't make up a name.
Romeo Sanchez.
No, that's Romeo Sanchez?
Yeah, I think he plays for El Salvador.
Did Brad Thomas think of that or Dave Fox? Is the question.
Brad Thomas.
Still,
Brad thought that one.
Still the oddest pseudonym, alternate name in the history.
I think I had to think of it really quick.
It sounds like it. Brad Thomas. Just a little bit of a callback to a Dave interview a few months ago. For our listeners, Dave took a second job in radio, and in order to throw his boss of his first job off the scent, as if this was going to work, named himself Brad Thomas when he was doing radio at night. The dumbest, weirdest thing. And you never got caught?
No.
Okay.
No, not at all. Never knew. I doubt the other boss was listening.
Well, I was going to say, you can't change your voice. Or did you try to change your voice?
No,
speaking like a southern accent or something.
Although I did do the midnight metal like this, Skinny Johnny Mitchell, Dave Fox, KCPX.
Wait, Skinny Johnny Mitchell?
He was on the AM side. Actually, Skip Ward was on the FM side.
His name was Skinny?
Skinny Johnny Mitchell.
Okay. So did you work with Skinny Johnny Mitchell?
I worked with Skinny and Skip Ward at KCPX.
But did you work with them as Dave Fox or Brad Thomas?
That was Dave Fox.
Who did you work with as Brad Thomas?
That was over at what was, by the way, it was a precursor to 570.
Sure.
Who's that now?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay. Well, anyway, it was like Club 57.
Just shout out Chris Tunis, the tuna.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I think it was a sports station for a long
Rest
time.
in peace,
It was kind of
man.
a precursor
Yeah.
to that, and it was in this building out in North Salt Lake. Back then they have the radio stations were actually under the tower.
Yeah.
It was right there.
Yeah.
So no, Skinny Johnny Mitchell and Skip Ward just knew me as Dave Fox.
But who
gave me the
did you
time.
work with as Brad Thomas? Who were your?
That was at 57 a.m., 570 a.m. or whatever. There was an FM too. I don't remember what it was.
Did your coworkers at 570
No
know?
clue.
They only knew you as Brad Thomas.
Yeah. I rarely even saw him. I only did weekends. I did a couple of weekend nights, like a Saturday, Sunday kind of thing.
So you'd walk in the building, they'd be like, "What's up, Brad Thomas?"
I don't think they would even say that. I was just like, "What's up, you guy?"
With no
I wasn't
frame
there
of
very
reference that wasn't your name or you had a different job and exist. Did you have a second family that you haven't told us about?
No, I didn't do that. But I told you the story about how that was the station where I played U2's first hit, "I Will Follow."
Sure.
And just brought it in myself.
Mm-hmm.
And the program director had a fit because it wasn't on his playlist.
Uh-huh.
Shows you how close-minded he was, because U2 went on to become pretty good.
Do you know who the program director was?
No clue.
No
clue.
Can I see Brad Thomas in my office, please? We played U2, and I didn't give him permission.
We played "I Will Follow." That song's going nowhere.
Hey, go get Brad Thomas. Get Brad in here. He's playing records I didn't give him permission to play.
And I was working on the weekend anyway, so I wasn't there during the week when the office staff was around.
Yeah.
So I never saw anybody.
Yeah.
I was lucky to get in the building.
Good times, man. Good times. All right. What's coming up on
We're out of
5
time now.
We are.
That was a podcast segment.
It's summer
That's
radio.
That's what we
dude.
did.
It's
and
summer
I love
radio.
that, yeah.
Unless you have a hot take on the NBA Finals.
Well, you're going to have one tonight because 5 questions with Spence is coming your way. We have a couple things I'm going to throw at you with regards to the finals, and then the Bees are on. I don't know if you know this. We televise on KMYU when they're at home, and Tony Parks is on the call. I'm sorry to mention.
Are you asking me about the Bees tonight?
No, I'm not going to ask you about the Bees.
Okay.
But you were asking me what's coming up tonight, and I wanted to mention that. Okay. And it's game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yes, it is.
How wild is this Vegas run?
Yeah.
As in some respects, the Mammoth may have played them better than any team so far. I mean, maybe the Ducks a little bit, but yeah, I agree with you.
Vegas is 19-4-1 since Tortorella took the job, and 2 of the losses were to the Mammoth.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So that'll be fun to watch, and we'll do that tonight. KMYU Talking Sports.
All right, man.
Hey,
what are you going to do between now and 6:30? I'm genuinely curious as what the next 90 minutes of your
I'm
life
going to go
like.
back, ponder what I'm going to make for dinner, and I'm going to discuss the rest of the show with Timmy.
You're going to go address the help over at KMYU?
We're going to have a meeting.
Are you going to be nice?
I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying there all night.
Well, are you going to be kind to them?
I'm always kind to them.
No, I've been there long enough to know what this looks like.
Okay, I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I think the people that I work with enjoy working with me because I'm pretty good to them.
I think you need to have...
I'm harder on you than I am them.
Oh, that's for sure. But I think you need to have some in-depth, honest conversations with your staff.
Well, they seem to really enjoy that.
Well, of course, you're the boss, so they're not going to say anything. But I think you need to say, hey, let's take the boss-employee relationship out of this.
I've done that.
Dave.
And they seem to be terrific. Unless you know something I don't.
Brad.
Thank goodness I don't have to deal with Brad Thomas.
I'm
going to... On weekends, you address me as Brad Thomas.
It's still so bizarre that that's what you went with. All right, dude, I'll see you in a bit.
See you. Thanks, dude.
The Smashing Pumpkins are taking over the Delta Center on October the 29th. Tune into the Sean O'Connell Show this week for your chance to score a pair of tickets. We got 3 hours down. We have 1 hour to go. Final hour of the program is next right here on ESPN 700. Just ending the show with a banger, as the kids would say on a Tuesday. Dave Fox was in studio earlier, or better known as Brad Thomas. He was jamming a little Enya to announce the arrival of summer. So he continued the theme. Look, Enya's got some decent hits. I mean, there was this weird, like, new age, like 4 or 5 year deal. I think it was back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, where it felt like a lot of people were actually aggressively listening to Enya. My guess is, based off your age, you're not all that familiar with Enya.
Almost not at all.
Yeah.
But, to each their own, especially Dave.
Leave it to Dave Fox, who is a 70-year-old man going on 12. Why is he posting videos to announce the start of summer anyway? Feels like something a teenage girl would do.
I mean,
respectfully.
He went on spring break and it was like a big deal. Like, it was a big thing, right?
Yes.
If you recall.
Yeah.
So it's just what we get with Dave, which, listen, if you can allow the child in you or the or the obnoxious teenager in you, in Dave's case, to not die forever, I wish and hope that you do that. So I'm proud of him for doing so.
The spring break video was wild because he was walking around the pool taking a video of himself with a straight billed hat delivering swig sodas to like young ladies. And it could have been his daughter's friends, but he's like filming them walking around delivering swig sodas to some EDM track in the background.
He's a man with the times.
He is.
I think.
He is. So I'll be on TV with Dave tonight. 10:35 on KMYU. We call that 5 Questions with Spence. Stanley Cup Final begins tonight. After we say goodnight, 6 o'clock drop of the puck between the Golden Knights and the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes are 12-1 in their last 13 games. The Golden Knights are 19-4-1 since hiring John Tortorella, and 2 of those losses came in the hands of the Utah Mammoth. But we'll see. We got NBA Finals coming up tomorrow, so excited for the start of the Knicks-Spurs series. That's going to be at 6:30 Mountain Time. Of course, we are your home of the NBA Finals. Here in the market, Porter, what else is coming up on a Wednesday edition of the show?
Halfway through the work week, you mentioned a little earlier, Brian Dunseth is going to be out of pocket for World Cup stuff. Of course, before he does that, we'll get him on the show. Neil Smith talking Game 1 of the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. We'll check in with our friend Craig Bolerjack, and then I think our buddy Easton Folster will stop by. We'll do a PGA Tour update for you a day early, and, of course, talk a little Knicks with him as well.
There you go. It'll be a fun day to have Easton, who, if you don't know, is the executive director of the Utah Golf Association. Really good dude and a big-time Knick fan. Randomly grew up in Utah, but a Knick fan as well. All right, we'll say goodnight. Special thank you today to Tim McMahon, Sarah Todd, Dave Checketts, Dave Fox. If you missed any of the sound, the website is ESPN700sports.com. You should download our mobile app and take us on the go. That ESPN 700 app is available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. And then finally, for what we do in this space every day for 4 hours, check out our podcast page, asking you to support and look at 2 different podcasts. If you have some time tonight, go to your preferred podcast catcher. You can search Reality Check with Spence Checketts. 9 episodes up now. You can also search The Drive with Spence Checketts. Thousands of episodes of that show at your disposal. For Porter, I'm Spence saying goodnight. Have an excellent Tuesday evening. We'll talk to you on a Wednesday edition of The Drive. And as always, you can catch it right here on ESPN 700.